It's still Plus Politics. My name is Nyamgulu Agaji. President-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has raised alarm over alleged plots by some aggrieved politicians to truncate the transition process, particularly his expected swearing in on May 29th. Tinubu, in a statement by the spokesman of APC Presidential Campaign Council PCC Festus Keyamo, also warned the presidential candidates of the People's Democratic Party PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and that of the Labour Party LP, Mr. Peter Obi, against taking to the streets while also pursuing their cases in court. In the statement issued, the president-elect noted that those who have taken to the streets protesting against his mandate are fixated on having an interim national government, ING. Joining us live to discuss this is Mr. Segun Shokweton, a political analyst, and we're hoping to be joined also by Taiwo Olakpade in the course of the show. But we're beginning with Mr. Shokweton. Good evening and welcome to the program, Mr. Shokweton.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, now the elections have come and gone. I'm not sure we're going to have another election again, except, the unthinkable happens. And now that we are at this point, May 29th is just around the corner, and we need to mend fence. We need to mend the bridges, mend the fences, and or whatever it is that we need to do to come back as one and move on as a nation. But it doesn't seem to be happening, especially within the political parties. We've seen where PDP here in Lagos has filed a petition against the victory of Sanwo-Olu, and even, in fact, the Labour Party, that they did not keep to the guidelines of INEC. We've seen in Ondo where APC ward has suspended the chairman over abuse of office, as they are calling it. We've seen where APC's accusing Labour Party presidential candidate that there was an audio that was leaked and he needs to clarify that and this and that. Every small issue is either going to court or is becoming a very, very serious talking point within the parties and, you know, inside the parties and between parties and all that. We've also seen Labour Party. Now we're having someone who is parading himself as the authentic or acting Labour Party chairman, national chairman. And we're just wondering what is really happening. How can we heal and move on as a nation? Let's first of all just look at what is happening within the parties. Why do you think there is this rise in suspensions, anti-party, and all those other things that the parties are accusing themselves and other parties of? What is giving rise to all of this after an election has been won and lost?
Well, thanks for having me again. Good evening, Nigerians. Look, yes, the elections have come. Yes, we can say they have gone. But it would appear as though from everything that we see, in the country now, that the elections are far from over. And that is unfortunate because it should not be so. The reality, no matter what anybody might say, that the elections are not over. We've had elections of different colors, different flavors in the past, especially in this Fourth Republic. Just limit ourselves to that time frame. And I think even when we had elections that were really, really terrible, for example, the 2003 and 2007 elections, I'm not sure I remember any time, maybe with the slight exception of 2011, where the mood in the nation has held so much uncertainty, where over a month after the presidential elections, there's still a lot of doubt, surrounding the transition, if you like. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is why? Even for people that are supporters of the ruling party that INEC has declared the winner, they will admit that they are far from being in celebratory mood. They are far from resting, and relaxing and trying to savor victory. They're still combatant. There's still one controversy or the other every single day. They still have to respond to, accusations. They are making accusations. It's just the entire country is in a bit of a state of suspense at the moment. And, you have to ask ourselves why. And for me, I think the reason is very simple. I don't think that anybody, no matter their coloration, no matter their political leaning, no matter who they support, I don't think anybody would continue to agitate if the electoral process that resulted in the outcome we have on our hands was transparent and patently, obviously fair. So that is where I believe we have problems. INEC promised certain things. INEC gave very firm assurances. INEC asked Nigerians to rest and relax that these elections will be free, will be transparent, will be credible, will be fair. But from even the reports of a lot of international observers, and some of our most credible local observers, the elections were anything but transparent. And even as I speak to you now, the upload of result sheets on the IRF portal for the presidential elections is still not at 100%, shockingly. So I think that this has set the tone for what we have in the country now. It has left a lot of people feeling extremely aggrieved. Like we said, in the immediate aftermath of the elections, if you do the analysis, the simple mathematics, right, you find that for the first time in our political history, at least in the Fourth Republic, the winning candidate won less than 50% of the votes that were cast. Less than 50%. They won 36%, right? The other two candidates, and it's also the first time that we've had the losing candidates sharing such a large proportion of the votes. So what that will do is that there's a large proportion of the electorate that are unhappy with the outcome. And that is what we're seeing now. And that's why we're seeing a lot of grievances being expressed. That's why we're seeing a lot of people saying things like inauguration must not hold, and all of that. I think that this is unfortunate. Sadly, there is very little that can be done about this other than to rely on, legal processes that have been provided by the Constitution and the Electoral Act to seek redress, and hopefully secure justice. Until that is done, I think all parties will simply have to try as much as possible to abide by the letters and the spirit of the law. We can't, because we're not happy with the outcome of elections, we can't throw the entire country into bedlam and chaos. Nobody's interest will be served by that. So I think that both on the part of the winners, the APC, and on the losing side, the PDP and the Labour Party, losing at least in, according to INEC, I think everybody must sheath their swords and try as much as possible to act with decorum so that we don't throw the country into anarchy leading up to the inauguration and afterwards.
But I'm just wondering, this is not the first time that elections, I'm not trying to encourage evil, as it were, but this is not the first time elections have been rigged in this country. This is not the first time INEC chairman has promised us a very, very free and fair election. Morrissey Wood did the same thing, Jega did the same thing, and now Yakubu did the same thing. They all promised us. So why is it like this is one of a kind? Why is this uproar happening even after elections, so many weeks after elections, in fact, months after election, as it were? What is so special about this one?
Well, look, what's special is that hopes were raised. Before this election, I belong to civil society, and I know the amount of work that we put in terms of voter education, public enlightenment, and all of that, encouraging people to go get their voters cards, PVC, your PVC is your power, and so on and so forth. We did that primarily because INEC, especially the INEC chairman, was very reassuring in his body language, in his mannerisms, in his words. The Electoral Act itself presented a scenario that appeared to be potentially rigging-proof. You know, if you look at the provisions of the law, when you combine the voter accreditation by BVAS, the method of accreditation by BVAS, the fact that we're moving away from the card reader where cards could fail, we're moving to biometric verification that depended on either your fingerprint or your face, recognition of your face, you know, your facial features, combining that with transmission of results directly from the polling unit. This is very key. Transmission of results into the central server from each BVAS and upload of result sheets into IREM from the polling unit, you know, and then you then continue from there with the standard, the old process of manual collation. Now, those three provisions that technology was going to introduce give a scenario that assured people, and people believed a lot of, so you saw 10 million new registrations before this election. It was unprecedented. This was because a lot of people that had never voted before, that probably would not have voted, listened to what we were saying, in civil society, what INEC was saying, talking about how much this election had moved us further into the future, how much the provisions of the law and the technology and the guidelines that INEC had put out was going to prevent, rigging. The outcome that we were confronted with and the manner in which it happened, the way uploads failed nationwide. We have to just step back, sit back and think about this. Uploads failed nationwide in 176,000 polling units simultaneously. For anybody that is a technology enthusiast, you know that the chances of 100% technology failure is very remote. So that immediately raised questions about manipulation and deliberate sabotage. And this, once you have people having doubts, especially in a scenario where their hopes had been previously raised, really, everybody was raring to go. There was so much enthusiasm. People believed genuinely that their vote would count, and the person that they wanted to vote for and they wanted to see become president would emerge. When that hope was dashed in such brazen manner, and then in the aftermath of that election that was so controversial, the body language and the conduct and the utterances of the winning parties exacerbated the feelings, the grievances that people were feeling, the malcontent, and made things just terrible. So, so that is what has set the tone for what we are seeing now, where people are in an unprecedented manner. Some are even saying that the inauguration should not hold. That's how bad people feel. So I think, what set the tone for this is the amount of hope that have been created before the election and how much of an anticlimax the elections itself then turned out to be and how those hopes were dashed. Hope deferred maketh the heart sick, the Holy Book says. The worst thing you can do to a human being is to take hope away from them. When they become hopeless, it's as good as they're dead. And, when a man feels that he's dead and there's no hope, believe me, there's nothing that he cannot do.
Now, INEC is saying that they did no wrong because electronic transmission, rather, of results was not a must. They didn't need to do it. So they have done no wrong, and this election is credible, is fair, and whoever emerged credibly. Now, I don't know. They quoted a lot of paragraphs, a lot of sections of whatever guided them to do the election. Do you think we will ever get out of this if INEC continues this way? They have hired a lot of lawyers to also defend them in court and all that. And, what do you think about that? They say they did no wrong at all.
I think INEC has bungled these elections badly. And to say they did no wrong is, you would expect them to say that, but I think it's very unfortunately not true. And I also must say, I've heard this argument so many times, and I laugh. Look, INEC is under compulsion. It is compulsory for them to transmit elections electronically. Their own guidelines said so. You know, we have to understand this. It's not optional. I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, it's not compulsory. The Electoral Act did not specifically say that. The Constitution also did not specifically say that results must be transmitted electronically. But they fail to recognize that, you know, when you are making laws, every law derives power from somewhere. So the Constitution derives its power from the people, from the mandate, from our franchise, right? We vote for the National Assembly, and then they enact a Constitution, and that Constitution begins to guide us based on the franchise we gave to the National Assembly. And then every other law that we operate derive their power from the Constitution. The Electoral Act derives its power from the Constitution and lays out how INEC is supposed to conduct our elections. Now, that Electoral Act specifically stipulated that INEC shall, that's the word the Electoral Act said, shall prescribe the method for which elections shall be conducted in the country. It's a must. Now, INEC then, following that law, released the guidelines. By that token, the guidelines have attained the force of law. The guidelines are an extension of the Electoral Act, which is an extension of the Constitution. The guidelines are a law. The guidelines in INEC's guideline stipulated clearly that the results will be transmitted at the polling unit. It is very clearly spelled out in black and white, right? The transmission of results and upload of results, two very distinctly different things, were stipulated in those guidelines. It is the law. It is not optional anymore. INEC cannot change that rule midstream, just at their convenience. Now, those guidelines also specifically make provisions for collation of results. Please, let's make a distinction between transmission and collation. The transmission of results and the upload of results were supposed to be a control for the collation of results. Collation of results was meant to be manual. Now, the collation of results, the guidelines stipulated clearly that results were going to be collated from the result sheets that had been uploaded already. That is the stipulation of the electoral, the guidelines of INEC. Now, Section 93 of those guidelines now made provision for situations where uploads failed or where electronic transmission failed. INEC is then required to go to the police and collect copies of the result sheet, EC 38A, I believe that's the number, from the police. And that is what will be used for collation at the collation centers. So that is the only provision within the law where INEC will be expected to deviate from using the uploaded and transmitted results. INEC had or has to show the world that they did that. If they did not, then they have failed to comply with the law. And we will wait to hear what the opinion of the Supreme Court, on this. But I think that it's very simple, it's very straightforward. So INEC cannot say that, oh, we're at liberty to transmit if we so please. I'm sorry, they're not. If that were to be the case, then it simply means that INEC can just do whatever they want based on their own whims and caprices, and then we would no longer have the rule of law. We would have the rule of chairman of INEC or the rule of INEC. So it doesn't work that way.
Okay, well, we will just take a short break, and when we return, we'll still be looking at what is going on right now. We cannot have a interim national government. That's from a lot of people who are saying no to interim national government. And some people are saying the inauguration must not hold because of the many issues that are happening. And even others are saying if these issues need to be trashed, they should be trashed before May 29th. Well, We'll be joined by Taiwo Olakpade, a public affairs analyst, who will also be talking with Segun Shokuton when we return from the break.
For me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that, you know, good food is going to come out of that kitchen.
You can leverage on each other's spaces and, you know, sell. We believe in Nigeria, right? We believe that Nigeria can get better. We, the youth, are the ones that can make it better.
And my products are proudly made in Nigeria.
Made in Niger, showing every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. and repeats on Saturday at 8:30 a.m.
From Adamawa State, northeastern Nigeria. I attended an introduction course in conservation biology, and I realized this was what my passion was. After I completed my master's in the UK, I knew I wanted to come back to my country. I knew I wanted to come and work for conservation in Nigeria and nowhere else. Before WCS took over managing the ranger activity, about 10 to 20 elephant carcasses were recorded, killed by poachers annually. Rangers were not properly trained, they were not armed, so one ranger with a firearm in the team and the others would have cutlasses and sticks. That made the hunters more confident. I experienced poaching, I think, my first day in Yankari.
It was almost fading, only the name was existing, but the actual reserve was just a shadow of itself. Poaching generally is a very big problem for us in Yankari.
I realized there was lots of grievances from the surrounding communities. Sometimes they would send huge complaints and huge threats that they would kill elephants because elephants have gone out to destroy.
You're welcome back. It's still Plus Politics on Plus TV Africa, and we're looking at what is going on in the political space and how feasible it is that we're going to have a May 29th that will have peace, that will help us move on as a nation. Granted that all the people will come together and do the needful, and then we move on. I did promise you that we're going to be joined by Taiwo Olakpade, and he has just joined us here to also join Segun Shokwiton to talk on what is going on in our political space. Taiwo, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, well, we were talking with Segun and trying to answer some questions that we're asking ourselves. We're just trying to wrap our heads around what is happening now. We see in the Labour Party there's a problem. We see in the PDP there's a problem. We see even in the APC that has been declared winners of the presidential election, there is a problem. Some ward excos are suspending some people, some things. A lot of things are just happening within the parties and between the parties, and we're looking at how we can solve these problems before the day of inauguration and then move on. Why do you think these things are happening now, and what is the possible outcome you think will be out of all this thing?
Well, we are having this crisis within parties because most of the political parties in the country, they lack internal democracy. And that's where democracy starts from. If within your political arena, you cannot organize a free and fair election where a winner will emerge, then how will it be possible for you if you contest against another political party and you lost at that election? How will you, accept, the conduct of that exercise if within your own political party you lack internal democracy? And that's where all this, the fallout, the hula baloo, the crisis, started from. You will see a scenario where a candidate that people think is the people's choice, declaring intention to contest for a political party, a ticket, say governorship ticket, is a popular candidate. But the leadership of the party may not want that candidate, at that point. And in the other way around, you see another candidate emerging as the candidate of another aspirant, imagine the candidate of that party going into election. And maybe by peradventure, they may lose at that election because they have not fielded the choice of the people. But the leadership who is in charge of the party's machinery, would take a decision and say, this is the person that we want. Maybe because money has exchanged hands or for another reason that we may not know of. But basically, the reason why we have challenges across party lines, there is no party as we speak now that does not have one challenge or the other. Now we are talking about electing the leadership of National Assembly. And we know that by the arrangement, the leadership of the National Assembly, particularly the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the arrangement we have is the party with the largest number of elected representatives. We have about, of course, we have had majority of the House of Reps election during the February 25th, but we still have some staggered election because of the fallout, the crisis, here and there. But as we speak, APC have about 160 elected House of Rep member. PDP has about 106 or 100, and other political parties. But if you look at it, this is not the kind of scenario that we had in 2019. In 2019, APC won the majority that nobody will contest with them, when it comes to choosing the leadership. But this one, if you put the opposition political parties together, they have more elected representatives than the 160. House of Rep is made up of 360 members. But as we speak right now, there is possibility that if APC does not put its house in order, opposition party may become the Speaker of the House of Reps. But for the Senate, 109 senators, we have about 50 APC senators elect at the moment. We have about 20-something, for PDP, Labour, NMPP, Social Democratic Party, ABGA, sharing the remaining. And we have about a few number of Senate seats to be also filled in the coming staggered election. But I'm just saying that because we lack internal democracy, and we have close to about 7 senators, 7 top-ranking senators that are jostling to become the Senate president, including Ahmed Lawal, who is about also finishing his first term as a Senate president. How come that this political party cannot agree and support one candidate among them? So that's where the crisis starts from. And I said that because they lack internal democracy, and we continue to have this problem until we get to a point that the party will agree maybe a consensus candidate, or if possible, they could also organize a primary election that will be not just be seen to be free, but free and fair in all ramifications, so that there won't be any rancor going into a general election. But in the case we continue to have some people being foised on other members of the political party, definitely there will be crisis. The crisis within political party is more than crisis between APC and PDP. The one within, the crisis within APC or PDP or Labour or ABGA, as the case may be, that goes beyond the crisis APC is having with Labour or PDP is having with APC or NPP is having with PDP. The crisis within is more. And if we don't resolve the crisis within, how will we be able to forge a common ground to fight the enemy outside?
It's a worrisome thing. Let me just ask both of you now, because when we talk about democracy, we'll be looking at, trying to iron out a lot of things, the way the people behave, not just political parties and all that. And we're trying to build a democracy that will be built on ideology and so many other things that are globally accepted. And then you come back to Nigeria and you see a situation where, because a political personality or a politician in a particular place was not able to deliver his word, he will be branded an anti-party person and maybe removed from the party, which means the next election cycle, he will resort to a do or die affair so that he will retain his position. What will that do to our democracy? We need to begin to talk about what kind of harm that kind of a thing is to our democracy, and what needs to be done to both the parties and the people who make these as a yardstick. To belong to a party, you must deliver your word, whether by crook or by any means, just deliver your party. Let's just know the implication of actions like this to a democracy that we're trying to protect. Let me start with you, Shokwitson.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So, it's a very critical question that you asked. But democracy, I think it's important that we understand that democracy should be first and foremost about participation, about the freedom of association, freedom of speech, participation in the process of governance. Elections are only a small subset of the entire democratic experience. Unfortunately, and in line with what you just put forward, what we have here is a situation where elections are almost the all in all of our democratic experience. Once the elections are over, the idea of democracy, as far as politicians are concerned, ends, and you then have rulership taking over. So now, when you have a situation where politicians don't even seem to grasp the essence of democracy, it's first of all about participation. Then you have a situation where these types of tendencies that you speak about might begin to rear, and that could lay very dangerous precedents going in the future. So First of all, I think our politicians need to be reminded that the fact that I lose my polling unit or that I lose my work does not make me less of an asset to my party, because there is more the democratic process than that election. If I win 10 votes from my polling unit or 2,000 votes from my local government or my ward, I have contributed to the total number of votes that my party won the entire election. And let's not also forget that this is supposed to be teamwork. So I don't understand where these parties are coming from when they say all these things. However, I think it's important to note the context within which this ugly trend has reared its head. In the past, yes, we have had prominent politicians lose either their polling units or their wards or even their states, and people lampoon them, over that. But in this particular election, it has become particularly more prominent because politicians in some parts are openly fraternizing with candidates in other parts. And there is a very huge example, the elephant in the room. Rivers State, Governor Wike, who is one of the most prominent members of the PDP, perhaps it can be argued that it's maybe even the strongest member and the life force of that party, actively worked against the presidential candidate of the PDP in this election. He ensured that the APC defeated the PDP in his own state. Now, is that anti-party activity? Well, no, he openly canvassed against his own party. So you also have to call that to question. Because, if you have people who are deliberately working against the interests of their own party, then how can we trust them to work for the generality of Nigeria?
But Mr. Sokoto, is that not supposed to be what democracy is about? Are you not supposed to, even if your party is doing something and you find out that it doesn't align with what you think is the best for the country, for instance, and you opt out and join hands with someone or a group that feels that they can do it through another means, and then you openly declare it? Is that not supposed to be what democracy is? Must you follow and just take hook, line, and sinker just because it is your political party?
Look, democracy there's freedom of association, right? But once you have associated, I think that the brand of democracy that we must practice is a brand where there is an ideology and there's ethics and there's some sort of honor and integrity. I cannot stay within one political party and deliberately work against the interest of that party. If you believe that that party is not towing the line that you believe in and you do not support where they're going, you have the option, as it is allowed in any democracy, to resign your membership. You can even join another party and work for them. What I don't understand is the situation where you stay within one party, work against the interest of that party in one election, and then work for the interest of that party in the next election, in the same election cycle. I think we cannot afford to encourage that type of practice. I think, and again, I need to point out that this has happened in this election because, we're seeing an unprecedented scenario where a candidate has emerged, or a number of candidates have emerged, that have the national presence, the national clout to win the presidential elections, and they are garnering support across political divides. That's why we see this tendency that we're seeing. However, I think that it should not be encouraged. I think that people should be encouraged to deal and play with integrity so that, we don't then continue to encourage the idea that politics is a dirty game and do whatever it takes to take people. I'm not sure that would be our best effect. In other climes, politicians behave honorably, at least in the public space. Whatever they do behind the scenes, their business. But in the public space, they're expected to behave honorably, and where they fail to do so, even they will resign based on public pressure. And I think we need to move in that direction.
Okay, because our time is going very fast, and there are other things that we need to cover. My question to you is, do you think the political actors in our country right now are doing what they're supposed to do to bring about the healing that we need right now. For instance, the president-elect, is he doing enough? Is he talking enough? Is he giving us enough body language that will tell us that he really needs this peace? The people who are in the opposition, who also claim that they want the unity of this country, they want peace in this country, are they doing enough? What else do they need to do to make sure that we arrive at that peace that we so desire?
Well, before I provide answer to that question, just permit me to quickly give two examples of the way politicians leave one party for another party because of lack of internal democracy. Senator Iyinaba Abaribe has been representing Abia South since 2007 on the platform of the PDP. In the build-up to 2023 elections, he was denied the ticket of that same Abia South because the outgoing Governor Okeze Ikpeazu, was also interested to go to the Senate. What did he do? He left the PDP for him to take the ticket of Abga, and he won the sitting governor hands down. And that shows that people of Abia South love Senator Ejinaya Abaribe. It's about what we are discussing about, lack of internal democracy within political space. Another example is Abdul Jubril Mumin. He has been also around in the House of Reps for 3 terms. That's about 12 years. In the build up to this election, he left the PDP to join APC, but very close to the 2015 February 25th. He left APC again to take the ticket of a Labour Party. And today, he has been re-elected on the platform of the Labour Party. But come to your question, the body language of the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, that I see, that I know, I think is ready to also ensure that he extend, in his inaugural speech, he said it loud and clear, that he's extending hands of fellowship, brotherhood.
Yeah, but beyond that inaugural speech, after that till this moment, has he done enough?
I want to believe with his body language that Asiwaju will form a cabinet that will represent all the overall interest of this country. And what do we need? We need a government of national unity, fine, for integral, integration of the entire country. But we also need people to also come on board on merit, because at the moment now we are at the crossroad. We need people who have the credibility, who have the capacity to deliver. Okay. And not just on the basis of man knows man. Yes. We need people, the people should be selected on merit and not because I know you, you know me. We are at the crossroad. And if you are not careful, and that's exactly what we are talking about now, to choose the leadership of National Assembly is becoming problematic even for the ruling party. We should have the interest of the people and the nation at heart. And that's the only way Asiwaju can succeed on this mandate that has been given to him by about 8 million Nigerians or thereabouts.
Okay, Mr. Shokweton, we have 1 minute left now. Do you think they're doing enough to make sure to bring about this peace that we want?
No, I don't think we're doing enough. I don't think the APC, I don't think the president-elect is doing enough. I don't think the APC as a party is doing enough. I don't think that the Labour Party is doing enough. I think the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has a very consistent message. But the other, and I think Atiku Abubakar has also been consistent. But the parties themselves need to rein their members in. The APC and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to ramp up the message of reconciliation. What we have now is a situation where people like Festus Keyamo and people like Femi Fani-Kayode and people like Bayo Ononuga are in the social media space and on air, on national TV, basically stoking up sentiment in a situation where people are already feeling aggrieved. So I don't think that the APC in particular is sending out enough of a conciliatory message. I think we need to do better than that. And I also want to say to the people, especially Labour Party supporters, that we should not continue to project a message of Armageddon, that it is Peter Obi or there is no Nigeria. There is no such thing. We are in court, and I think that we need to rein our emotions in and hopefully continue to put pressure on the Supreme Court and the judiciary to ensure that justice is served. and then hopefully, can navigate these delicate days ahead. So I think we need to do more across the board.
Okay, there's been calls that whatever the problem is, all the litigations, everything should be resolved before May 29. Maybe that is not a possibility, but we do hope that we will still have this Nigeria standing and we will be united even more than ever before to build our country to the El Dorado of our dreams. Thank you so much, Mr. Segun Shokpaton, for coming on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
And also, Mr. Taiwo Olakpade, thank you so much for being a part of our program.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, we do hope that we'll return tomorrow with yet another edition, another topic to discuss. Until then, on behalf of the entire team of Plus Politics, my name is Nyamgul Agaji. Thank you for being there.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
In every age, the good old days were always memories to cherish. Although no one ever thought they were good at that time, for every age has consisted of crises that seemed intolerable to the people who lived through them. Looking back now, one can really say, indeed, these days were good. My name is Tolulope Akmike Medebem Ni Adeolu, and here is my good old days story. I hail from Oderemo, Ogun State, but I was born and bred in Lagos, Island Maternity to be precise. My dad was His Royal Majesty Obasanjo Olufunso Adeolu. He was an educationist, a seasoned broadcaster, actor, and finally he became an Oba, while my mom, Olori Adedayo Atinuke Adeolu, was a thoroughbred educationist. She was an English major. She rose through the ranks working for Lagos State Ministry of Education, where she actually retired as an education director. I am the fourth of 8 children and Olori's first. That's my mom. I grew up mostly with my aunties on Lagos Island, Ologbo, where my mom would drop me off and then pick me up over the weekend. My aunties were more like my big sisters then, and it was so much joy being with them. And guess what? We actually still deal the same way, even now as adults. They formed a core part of my childhood, and today, I proudly say anywhere that was raised by 4 mothers, my mom inclusive. So imagine if these 4 mothers of mine got a whiff of my bad behavior in school. The story would never end, never. Each one of them would take turns to scold and punish me for bringing the family name and that of theirs to disrepute. Those were days of communal training where the community played a major role in child training and development. As much as these women, my moms, as much as they loved us and tried to ensure we charted our lives' course correctly, growing up, they couldn't always protect us from everything. I must say, I had my own share of bullying. I started wearing glasses at a tender age. These glasses were as thick as the Coke bottom bottle. Yes, such was the thickness of my glasses. I could not see without wearing them. Different names people like us were called. Those days hurt, Sha. But the ability to move on regardless of all those snide remarks, developing a thick skin, and believing in what I can achieve through the grace that I have been blessed with by the Most High, saw me through those moments. In fact, it honestly contributed to who I have become today. I started my primary education at Yaniwura Nursery and Primary School in Ilukweju, Lagos, and then later moved to Estate Nursery and Primary School, within the same Ilupeju environment. My secondary education was twofold. I started at Federal Government College, Ugwalao, where my uncle was the principal. And when he was transferred to Federal Government College, Sokoto, I naturally followed him to Sokoto, of course, to continue my secondary education. Such was the trust parents had on guardians in those days. The need to monitor a child and ensure that he or she was under a very strict control and tutelage of a mentor was considered essential for the moral and academic growth of such a child. Oh man, Sokoto taught me about being human. You may wish to ask, what does that mean? It meant that was where I learned that everyone was first human being before his tribe and ethnic learnings. At Federal Government College Sokoto, we did not have or understand the divide of tribes or thongs. School then were not only about academics, but they were out to develop character as well. And that's what truly being educated is all about. We all grew up together, and today, quite a number of us are still friends, regardless of whatever situation or conditions we are presently in. Today, I am pretty much a people's person. All that matters to me about you as an individual, first and foremost, is the chemistry, not where you come from. And all this is, I believe, thanks to my orientation. Oh, testing times two. I mean, when a growing child will always be a child. Yes, I remember the story of caustic soda. In those days, I think my mom used it to wash the bathroom. It was a plastic beverage container kept away from peering eyes. One day, she sent me to get something from her room and I saw the container. I opened it and saw this sugar-looking substance and wondered why she kept it in her room. And guess what? I licked it and that was it. I started foaming. I ran into the sitting room and everyone went berserk, confused and scared. My mom lifted me and started running towards the hospital. I was rushed to the hospital where I was stabilized and brought home. On a good day, after all the drama, I would have still been beaten. But I think they believed I was traumatized enough and she looked me in the eye and said, "That's what happens to thieves." No amount of beating could have shamed me like that, man. That was it. The tendency to steal perished forever in me. The first time my dad slapped me will be a story for another day. It was clear in my head, the biblical dictate of spare the rod and spoil the child. Over and over, my father would say that he had no inheritance he was leaving for any child. His greatest legacy to all of us, according to him, would be our education. So whatever he wanted to study, he was willing and ready to make it happen. Strangely, Dad's fame as an actor of repute wasn't something we thought about. I mean, it was just work as far as we knew. The only times it became a subject of discussion were when people saw you with him or found out he's your father and wanted to know what life is like living with him, or if he actually didn't have hands, based on his character in the famous Village Headmaster serial. Quite nostalgic. I recall how being his daughter impacted on me when I proceeded to Obafemi Awolowo University, Great Ife, where I obtained my bachelor's degree in arts from the Department of Dramatic Art. I had a lecturer who scored me rather low because he felt and actually knew I could do better. And he said to me, "To whom much is given, much is expected." That was a turning point of sorts in my academic. In those good old days, we were built to be resilient. We pushed on basically because we wanted to make our parents and ourselves proud. In the hierarchy of values, we were taught that honesty and integrity reign supreme. And I am very proud and thankful for these orientations and training. So what went wrong? Is it the same today as yesterday? I doubt. Is the situation hopeless? Certainly not. Is it possible to change the narrative? Absolutely yes. Like the lights that cannot be hidden under a bushel, like the faith as a mustard seed, I believe the glory of Nigeria will shine and we shall blossom again if we begin to plant into the hearts and minds of people these time-tested values of truth, honesty, integrity, and sincerity of purpose. Personally, I don't think the challenge is solely upon today's youth. It's our inability to create the right mentorship programs. The youths tend to emulate what they see around them. So if change must come, if tomorrow must be brighter, then the right attitude and values must be reenacted to
Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in news as it affects us all. I am Sayome Sally, and today we have a very, very full house. We have Nama, Jenny, and Mary. Hello, ladies. Let's start with the angel in the building.
Who's angel? Yeah, we have an angel.
He said angel. I was really looking this way. I didn't realize.
How are you?
I'm okay.
How was work today?
Feeling angelic.
Work is a work. But, we're positive, so yeah.
You look amazing as always.
Thank you. You look good.
I'm loving this your hair. All this your...
Her frontals.
Yes, so all this, what do you call it? Her golden hair. I don't understand. It's only Mary that cut hair so that she will start to wear wig. At least it really looks good on you.
Thank you.
It looks good on you.
Thank
All right,
you.
so Jenny, baby, how was your day?
My day was fine. I don't know if I did a lot of strategy planning today, but I don't know. I feel like my day was full, but I can only pinpoint one or two things that made sense.
You have a bit of brain freeze.
Yes. It was like the day just went by before I knew what was happening. When you called me, I was like, oh, it's actually time. The time, like today, just went by so fast.
Yeah. How are you, Norma? How was your day?
I feel much better today.
I see.
Yeah, but I'm good. I'm good. Adjustments.
Interesting. Don't adjust. Do adjust. Is
quick. Don't stay too long.
How are you doing, though?
What did I do today? So I wanted to tell you people. So I took my time to go and watch this Nedu's podcast. What do you call it? The bunch. Honest Bunch, Abby. That's the name of the podcast. I had so much fun actually watching the Basket's Mouth episode. And it's interesting how that 1 minute or how many minute clip you see on social media, you just think, because I took my time to watch the full
video.
It's a minute and how many? Yeah, I mean, an hour and maybe 30 or 20 something minutes long. I took my time to watch it. And it was so packed. It was so packed. There were so many lessons to learn because they were talking about friendship. They were talking. I think it's a very beautiful topic again because when they were talking, I was just reminiscing on a lot of things. It's so quick how we mistake acquaintances, for friends and all. You must understand, and so that when certain things happen, you're not disappointed. You know that
to define relationships.
Thank you.
It's
we don't
very
know
important.
how to define relationships. And I think it's a fantastic, conversation to have. How do you define, how do you tell that, okay, we've moved away from being an acquaintance to actual friends and all of that.
And even when friendships actually move away from actual friendship to something else. It's not as close as it used to be.
So you must acknowledge that there are different phases in the journey, so that you're not feeling like, and genuinely just wish people well.
It's a hard topic. So.
Very hard topic. I want to be there when people are discussing it.
Because I think that sometimes people are always easier and faster to define emotional or sexual relationships, but when it comes to actual friendship, people play with it a lot. So that's why there is that disparity, and people are having a lot of issues. And some people tell you, "Oh, I don't want friends," but yeah, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack.
Because there are a lot of expectations too that are unmet.
Yeah.
We'll talk. We will discuss the topic. I can see it brewing in my head. All right. So so today we want to discuss. I told you people that matter I cannot leave it. This Dalai Lama, come and kiss my yabi, come and suck my tongue matter. That's what we want to discuss today. Here's what we found as today's quote: "We must protect families. We must protect children who have inalienable rights and should be loved, should be taken care of physically and mentally, and should not be brought into the world only to suffer." This is from Gandhi. Now, the Dalai Lama, Tibetan Buddhist, foremost spiritual leader. Of course, he apologized on Monday after the video of him kissing a boy and asking the child to come and suck his tongue drew widespread condemnation. Advocates for abuse survivors have gone on to slam the global icon about that act. Now, so it's our ladies' night out. As you already know, Norma, Jennifer, Mary, and I We'll be discussing the Dalai Lama saga, and we're asking, are parents intentional about parenting? That's a question. But we'll do all of that. First, let's quickly run off. We'll come back from the break to see what we found in the news. All right, you are still watching Ways. Now, Global Day to End Child Sexual Abuse is observed every year on April 11 to raise awareness of sexual abuse perpetrated on children and to build a strong community to end it. Now, the day was started by the Innocent Revolution, an organization that has been combating sexual abuse worldwide, right? So, interesting day. And it was so interesting. I think, Norma, you're the one that pointed out in the group that, what's it called? That what a coincidence that we're discussing the Dalai Lama saga, and today is the day to end child sexual abuse, right? Because it's just so apt. As far as I'm concerned, let me calm down. Because the conversation, it got me, like, I was racing in my head when I saw that video. I was racing. Again, being a mother of boys and all of that, my brain was just racing. Where were the parents? Where were they? Because this was like, the boldness. All right, Auntie Davido, what did you find for us?
Okay, so I have Afrobeat singer David Adeleke, popularly known as Davido, has announced the release of his song Unavailable video of his album Timeless. It's actually such a nice video. I like the whole African concept that he's trying to imbibe. Anyways, he has always done that, because I think one of his first, so it's still, so it's still in the same, line of it. He says special thank you to the Mattel family for the role they played in making this movie. We are back better and stronger. More surprises with them on the way.
I'm liking my song. Hey, congratulations to Davido.
Yeah.
I think a lot is just happening for him, he had launched the line in partnership with Puma.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love those fabrics, actually. It's something that I would actually go into a store, pick up, to buy. Yes, I love
very
it.
nice.
The only challenge is that about people. Yesterday, they've already released the copy. Yesterday, they just put it side by side. Oh, no, maybe not. So
we have serious potential there in Aba, and I just wish the government can.
If the government can, see, let me tell you
harness the talent
all the government
that we
needs
have
to do is give them the original fabrics, the original, everything,
and they can make them here in Nigeria.
Yes,
instead of
importing and
import.
So you need to understand that there's potential there, because you see this your clothes. Just give it to an Abama. They will replicate it for you.
Well trained. A lot can happen in Aba if we can see that.
Harness the power that you have. They have already released their own Aba version. So I was just jokingly, what Jennifer was telling yesterday, I was jokingly telling her that was how my what's it called? My jersey, the Nigerian jersey, that really nice one that this one that first one that came out.
Version.
They made mine from Brazil. If you see Aba and Brazil,
no difference.
So somebody actually was in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, what do they call the place?
Yeah.
And they made mine and they put my name and all, customized it only for. It's interesting.
Wow. It's actually crazy because even abroad they have their own form of Aba section over there. Yeah. Some of them they get arrested, but some they will probably have to pay some kind of things to be able to operate. But they have those things. Like if you see these expensive designer bags that you see out there, they are the ones making the copies.
I was watching one video where they're talking about luxury brand, and some people were saying that no, they can't do a certain brand. You know the brand now.
Hermes.
Not be that one. The one that is V and L. That it is the most so they have a lot of knockoffs.
Yeah.
That particular brand,
Yeah.
that you can never catch them with buying an original, because they've so perfected the copy that it's almost like you can't even tell. So why am I taking my money and buying thousands of dollars bag and somebody is just.
You might only know in the threading or the way they sew it, because it's
yeah,
different.
there's always going to be a difference.
It's different, very different.
Yeah. All right, so let me take your story, Jennifer.
All right, so for my story, Japa, 3 reasons Nigerian youths go abroad for studies.
Number 1.
So based on this, they said that the Association of Nigerian Students in Europe said over 3 million students studied, or 3 million Nigerians studied in Europe in 2022, so over 3 million Nigerians. And the Central Bank of Nigeria said that Nigerians spent $1.38 billion on international education between January and September 2022. And then the 3 reasons that they gave based on this article is that the standard skills in European and American education is quite different from what we have here in Nigeria. And then also people leave the country because of frustration and hardship associated with Nigerian education. And then the third is the possibilities of jobs during educational programs.
Because even, abroad, companies would actually come, they would have been keeping tabs on certain students. So they actually come to do even job fairs right inside the university. So you're in your final year, you're seeing different companies coming to recruit, fresh. Do we have those here?
We don't have that.
Norma, your story.
Okay, so mine is in the health sector. We have 7 Nigerians who have completed the e-health knowledge and skills program. And the GEEKS program is a capacity building program that was funded by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and implemented by African Field Epidemiology Network and the Institute of Human Virology, Nigeria. So these 7 fellows from the National Primary Health Care Development Agency are the ones that are going to be training. They have initially developed a data analysis visualization tool for Nigerians' district health information software, 2 dashboard to show linkages between adverse events following immunization and to help facilitate the fast tracking of responses to any adverse events following immunization. I think this is a very good one because they also developed a routine immunization and vaccine preventable disease dashboard for surveillance of outbreak and response management and analysis systems, really to link immunization coverage with outbreaks. So basically, these people have come up with different tools that can be used in being able to respond to immunization in the country. And the programs are going to be used to train other people.
So it's almost like trainer kind of structure.
Yes. So it's a mentorship program as well, and these ones will train others. So I think it's a good one because when you talk about mortality rate, we mentioned it yesterday. Yes, for children, this would really go a long way to help in the health sector, and these are homegrown as well.
Homegrown. I was going to say that immunization for children, we kind of like perfected that thing because I know that, especially for polio, for instance, a lot of people go door to door, So I like that this is putting a structure to it, putting data to it, making sure that there's also
that's where we have a lot
and
of
getting
problems.
a track, so they are tracking it. They want to see the response of this immunization to, again, some of us took the COVID vaccine. There are still some very scary reports I'm seeing abroad. In fact, yesterday I was watching one where they talked about they were seeing cord-like things in their bloodstreams, or so things forming. I watched that report. I was like scared. So imagine if there is a monitoring structure that can track whatever that is introduced into your system, how your body is responding to it. Those kind of things is actually a good thing. Yeah, it is.
In the right direction.
But that does not stop them from migration.
Well,
because they have answered you people. My story says that UK restrictions can't stop doctors migrating, says NME and the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. of course, they said that some of these things that have happened, the code of practice, international recruitment of healthcare personnel will not stop Nigerian doctors from migrating to other countries. So if UK have closed door, doctors are telling you that they will go and look for another country to jackpot. God help us.
Are not out of options
At all.
for places that they will go to.
At all. I was saying to someone
I
that
think that's beauty of life.
Yeah.
Like I try to open my eyes to say that there are always multiple opportunities.
There are
Always,
options.
always.
Once you open your eyes, you see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when there's a will, that thing, you see, they say it's so cliche, but it's so true.
When there's a will,
when there's a will, like you have the will in your heart that this is what I really want to do, there will be a way for it. All right. On that note, we take a break. When we come back from the break, God help me. Let us discuss this Dalai Lama matter.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
Can I hug you? It's a question.
Okay, come. First here. Then I think finally here also. And suck my tongue.
Okay, so I like the way Mary's expression. She's opening her mouth. So many consider this video as really disturbing. I am trying to smile in the midst of all of these things just to calm myself down so we don't lose the crux of the matter. And this has brought the need to talk on parenting. Now, as a parent or someone who is parenting, you play an essential role in your child's life and you have the most important influence in their growth. Intentional parenting is an approach where you use strategies to build a healthy parent-child relationship, a healthy parent-child relationship, which then eventually provides opportunities for you and your child to learn and practice social and emotional skills. Now, social and emotional skills are important because they are linked to significant positive outcomes throughout the life of that child especially. Now, today we're asking, are parents intentional about parenting? Linking that to the Dalai Lama saga, what we just watched. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-4663. You can also tweet at us at WadeShow, Africa1 with the hashtag WadeShow. So I said to me, this conversation, there were too many things racing through my head. I remember when I was very young, there was a time that my parents, there was one, you know, the way all these out of, this out of state preachers come, like the general overseer will come to the church and all of that. And he came, you know, and it's almost like, okay, I want to perform deliverance. I mean, I'm very stubborn. I'll just be looking at you. I know they fall. You can do anything you want to do, you know. Like, so there was an expectation, maybe you need to be revered and all of that. But I don't have that. And this is why, for me, till today, it's a struggle for me to go and kneel in front of any man of God. It's not because of I don't believe. I just believe that I have access. The way you have access that you're talking to God is the same way I have access to God. So I'm not those kind of people that will go and call a pastor, pray for me. My mother will call me every time. It's a genuine man of God. Just this thing, you know, let it. She knows. She always tries her luck, but she knows that I will never respond to those kind of things. It's not a thing of, oh, maybe Uwa is just trying to be stubborn, or Uwa is trying to, it's just that there are some things that it does not sit well in my system. So that aspect of a spiritual leader raced in my head, right? And I mean, thankfully, Unoma is here. You and I know Timi Ibode. She has shared her story several times. Her first experience, her first, encounter of rape were pastors, right? They were pastors that raped her. Do you understand? It was not a normal person on the street. It was somebody that's supposed to be a spiritual leader, right? So she would be the one to always tell you that, forget all these things. So anything, man or God, as long as there's something in between, he is a human being before any spiritual whatever. So that part of spirituality was racing in my head. That, okay, have this boy been trained not to question a spiritual leader? That's one. Has he been trained not to question someone that he considers maybe older than him or somebody in authority? That's number two. Number three, has this boy been trained to say no? Because we are used to saying, okay, right? Because you could see clearly that the boy hesitated in wanting to when he said suck his tongue. Like he was taken aback. But he was not trained to say, no, sir, I'm sorry, it's inappropriate. Has this boy been given an introduction to sexual abuse and what it looks like? Has he been given an introduction to grooming and what it looks like? So that now overall summed it up for me that where were his parents when all of this was happening? Because all this boy simply asked for was a hug. You then moved on to his cheek, and you give you a peck, you kissed him on the lip, and you then brought out your tongue. Who are you? Even me, we born Peking. I was racing through my head. I kiss my children on the lip, yes. But I have never brought out my tongue, come and suck my tongue. So what gives that this boy tomorrow, you not ask him to suck the other side? So I was really livid. But you see, I don't want to use anger to change the conversation. So tell me, first of all, what were your thoughts when you saw it? Because you opened your mouth. Because maybe you did not understand it yet. You had not seen the video. So I like the expression. What were your thoughts? Why did you open your mouth?
I think it was, first of all, it was very disgusting. The fact that, I mean, I know there are some hidden things that people do, but this is out there in the public and you're a spiritual leader. Like, were you high on something? Like, what's even, what kind of mistake? Like, like, you did it first time and you want to do it second time again? Like, suck my tongue? How? In public?
Mary, that's not a mistake, I hope you know.
So, no, I can't believe that it was a deliberate act.
Okay.
Mary hasn't processed.
She has not processed it yet.
I can't.
I think there was something that struck me in the video. If you watch towards the end, after he asked the little boy to suck his tongue, there's this playful way he beats the boy. Do you get? And to me, what I saw was someone trying to make it look like it was a child that was being naughty. Not him, the adult, who was being naughty. Now, you know when somebody comes and touches you, or maybe person's flirting with you, and you're like, stop it, Joe. That was what I saw. And it just changed it changed the narrative a little bit for me, because you know how as a kid, when a little child or a little girl is abused and she reports and everybody hears about it, from gossip, one person to another, and then they spread it and make it look like, oh, she's the one who was being wayward. She was the one who was being at fault. She's the naughty one. Exactly. She asked for it. And that was what I saw play out in that scenario, because you can tell that the little boy was shy. The little boy wasn't exactly sure, okay, is this right or is this wrong? And that brings me down to my second point. The fact that a lot of us, we don't question people in authority. We don't question our elders. We don't question spiritual leaders, because we feel, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't question your motive. I shouldn't question your actions. I shouldn't question what you have done. But I think it is time for us to actually sit down and realize that that is the worst way to live life, especially when you're talking about kids. We need to question these things. You should train your kids to the point where they can say no firmly and stand on it. They should be able to question things and say why. I remember when we first moved to Lagos with my siblings. By the time we're entering the compound when we first moved, I think I was 7 years old or 8. It was still these face me and slap you houses. But when we're entering, my father lied to us that when you come to Lagos, there is Oyibo people here. That man has fed us lies. So by the time we're getting to the compound, I was just seeing black people like me. I said, but daddy, you say it's Oyibo people that we're coming here to see. My father said, you will soon see them. But as we're entering the compound, something struck me. Now, I was working with my elder sister, and there were two, I think probably they were in their early 20s then. They were coming out of the compound. So they've known my dad because my dad used to leave PH and then come to Lagos for work. So he has been living there for a while. So he has built a relationship. They knew him. He had probably mentioned that he had children, but this was the first time they were meeting us. And by the time we were entering, one of the guys held my sister's hand and said, my wife. And now at that age, I found her very repulsive and very disgusting. And I hit his hand, hit it so hard. And I shouted, she's not your wife. Now why are you calling her your wife? She's a small girl. He now said, So even my parents were like, Jennifer, do you get? Because they already know I was that child who would say no. I was that child that would question you. My father didn't teach me that. My parents didn't teach me to question. But I think maybe because I was exposed too early to a lot of things and they weren't just sitting right with me. So it was easy for me to question these things. And I think also probably because some of my character traits, I got it from my dad. My dad would question things. So I think because I got that from him, it was very easy for me to question a lot of things. And at that age, it just did not sit right with me. But even at that age, with the fact that I was very outspoken, there were still a lot of things that I couldn't see. Because even in that compound, there were men there that were trying to sexually harass myself and my sister. I didn't even know they were doing it to my sister. It was when we got older and we started talking about it. She was like, oh my God, this guy did the same thing to you. I said yes, that he sent me to buy something for him. And by the time I got into, because I didn't even want to go because I already hated the way I saw the way he was moving around the little girls in the compound and how you be passing the passageway and he will touch you in a very, and the way he will touch you, you'll be thinking, you're not sure. Okay, if I report now, if anybody asks me, what will I say? What will I say? Because this was very, very dodgy. What he did just did not make sense. But how do I communicate this to my parents that this was what this person did? So I wasn't exactly sure. So I was very weary of the guy. So anytime I saw him in the passageway and I saw a little girl passing there, I would follow the girl. So when he does something, I will scream and I will shout and just make some form of noise so that the guy would run away. So one day he sent me, buy me granite and Gary. I told him I'm not going. He said that I'm being stubborn and he would tell my father that they're sending me on an errand. So I wasn't answering. So I went and I bought it. So I got to his door. My plan was from the door, I would give him. So by the time I got to his door, this man was waiting for me inside. I said, I've brought your granite and Gary. He said I should bring it inside. I said, can't it come out? I was a rude child because if you overstep your boundary as an adult, I'll be rude to you because to me, I feel like you don't deserve
the respect anymore.
I can't give you that respect. And that was what I did. So by the time he said that, he said, that he's doing something, so I should bring it inside. So I opened his door. I still stood outside and I was stretching. He said that I should bring it. So he was acting like he was busy doing something. So I said, okay, no harm, it's afternoon. What's the worst that could happen? I can scream. So by the time I got into his room, he was sitting on his bed and I gave him his Gary and granola. Before I could step out, he was pulling me to his bed. And I looked at him and I said, if you touch me, I will scream. I will tell my daddy that this is what you do to all the girls in the compound. He now said, no, he doesn't do that kind of thing. I said, I will report you. So he said, if you report, what will you say? So by the time I thought about it, I left his room and I went out and I said, he's older. That man, I think that man was in his early 30s at the time. I was barely 10 years old. And I thought about it, actually. what will I say? My father, first of all, will beat me
for
entering
entering
his house.
Yes, no.
My dad will not even want to hear that this one. The first thing he will ask you, why did you enter there in the first place? I thought I've told you not to play with boys or sit with men or even interact with men, that kind of thing. So because of situations like that and the repercussions of me reporting, I kept quiet. But everybody in the compound noticed I was always constantly insulting this man and being rude to him. But guess what? No adults called me to the side to ask me why. Because now that I know better, if I see a child acting a certain way to an adult, I will ask questions because now I know better. So a lot of parents are not doing the work that they are supposed to do because they believe once you get to a certain phase in your life is to give birth to kids. But by the time you give birth to kids, there are a lot of things and responsibilities and things that you need to do to actually groom that child. And people need to start thinking about it before you give birth to a child.
Absolutely. Intentionality. Noma, help me out here.
Well, there's just so much to unpack about this. I was completely disturbed when I saw this video. I told you yesterday when I came in to the studio and I saw it was your story, I said, wow, it was too heavy for me to have that conversation yesterday. Not just because I'm a parent, but because of the passion that we have when it comes to children. I don't know how I developed that passion. I don't know how we came to develop it way beyond before we became parents, but it's something that my antennas are always up in protecting a child, not just my children, any child.
Yeah.
So seeing that from somebody that's highly revered, highly respected, it brought so many things I don't even think this conversation will have the time to accommodate it. But let me just go to two things before we move on. The power of the parent and the power of the child. Those are two things I saw play out in this scenario. Now, the power of the parent. The parent is responsible. Okay, before I even go there, I want to say that it's not every person who has a child that is a parent.
Definitely not.
And it is not only those who have children that can be parents.
All parents, yes.
Those are very, very important things for us to pay attention to, because sometimes a lot of people would say, oh, but I'm not a parent, like we heard some people say. And I say, it's not about having your own child. You don't need to have your own child to become a parent, to become responsible or an advocate for somebody who cannot stand up for themselves. And in our society, whether we like it or not, whether they say, oh, they can afford to do certain things now that we see in today's world, there is still that part that somebody needs to play in helping a child find the right direction for their life until they can now be responsible to do it for themselves. So where I see the controversy going on today and the conflict of interest, that's another kettle of fish. Now, when you talk about a parent is somebody who is responsible emotionally, physically, psychologically, the frontliner, let me put it, the first person that is responsible for the child before the society comes in, the environment comes in, or school or whatever. You are the first person. And you are responsible to show the child the way that they're supposed to go. And basically creates that environment that allows the child to be able to thrive, to be able to be successful. And every child is supposed to have that opportunity to live in a safe environment. So where the parent is not playing that role in creating that safe environment for the child is where we need to pay attention to. The parent is the one that has a right to help the child know that this is leading to the right direction and this will lead to destruction. So anybody, that's why I say that anybody can be a parent, because back in the days, if you remember, when somebody will see someone's child, they say, "Are you not so person's child? What are you doing here?" Start running home before I call your parents.
They will beat
like
you
that.
when you get home, and they will get your parents will beat you again
because of
issue. I had a church member. I was just walking with the guy before I reached the church. The news had gotten to my mom that I was seen with a man. I was just walking.
Even if they were asking you a question. So those are the kind of things that we grew up in. But with the society now, everybody for himself and things like that, things have gotten so bad. Now, the second thing is about the power of the child. The child, whether it's about your personality, whether you're quiet, you're shy, or this or that, every child deserves to have a voice. Every child deserves to be able to express themselves, to say how they're feeling. You know a quiet child, you know when they are acting out of character. That is the responsibility of the parent, because if you know your child well enough, there are things that you need to pay attention to. When they tell you that, oh, this child did this, you said, no,
that's
not this child.
Yes.
And there are the things that they'll tell you, said, I didn't expect anything less. I know that child. Now, you were able to express yourself because it was innate in you. You could, you had that. Nobody could take that. But guess what, Uwa? There are some children whose voices were stolen.
My elder sister.
And the people around were not able to pay attention to protect, to notice, and to advocate for that child. And we've lost a lot of children in the adults that you see today.
Absolutely.
So you see a lot of adults who have lost their voices because there was no one to protect them at the time, and they have even become defenseless parents to children of the future.
I think you should pause it there, because that is where I think the problem lies. Because if a parent, the voice has been dimmed, you don't even know to point out a red flag. That's why when Jennifer said she hit the sister, the man's hand off the sister, that she's not your wife or not, the parents were trying to calm her down. But you see, again, these are things quietly. Let's take a break. I want to open our phone lines. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, so if you just tuned in, it's our ladies' night out, and we are trying, to just be a bit less emotional and try to address this thing, because I believe that for every situation like this, I always have moments of lessons for my children. If something happens, it's a teaching moment. You don't let it slip. You don't let it slide. So if you are a parent out there, and you're not educating or empowering your children, now would be a good time to listen, because we're discussing this Dalai Lama saga, and we're asking, are parents intentional about parenting? Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation, send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-8038-4663. You can also tweet at us at WayShowAfrica1 with hashtag WayShow. Our phone line is now open. Remember, turn off the volume of your television set. The number to call is 070-2500-7749. That's the number to call. Remember to turn off the volume of all your appliances that you're watching us from. So you drove me where I was going. Because you see, hurting people hurt others. That's what they say. So it's just now, if you know better, you will do better. The fact that you can conceive a child biologically does not qualify you to be called a parent. A lot of people are not equipped to be parents. These people have been through abuse. It's just like a woman or a man that has seen all sorts of damaged, like his emotions is completely damaged or her emotions is completely damaged as a result of consistent or constant emotional abuse or even physical abuse. Do you think she would have the capacity to raise wholesome children? It's not possible. She must go through some level of mind reprogramming, shaping, and therapy for her to be wholesome enough to then see this human. Because you know why? If something is happening that looks like a semblance of what she went through, is happening to her child, she would say, I went through it. She will rise above it. She would be defenseless. She would not even have, it's a very vicious circle.
From one generation to the other.
The adults around the Dalai Lama laughing. Nobody raised the red flag to say, it is
very
wrong.
concerning.
That this is wrong. You know? Maybe you're going to say something.
I think the two things I'm seeing out of this is in the training of a child. Sometimes I would say the parents don't know better because of what they've gone through and, you know, the whole suppressed voices. And then there's also teaching the child to be able to say no in circumstances, whether you're a quiet or shy person. Because I'll take a personal story, for example. I don't remember my mom giving me any definite training on, you know, response to such things. But somehow in my head, I just knew it wasn't nice. So maybe there's a certain priest where, you know, she's doing her own thing innocently. Oh, did you go and greet Father? But Father is saying something, a different thing on WhatsApp. And I'm thinking, but you're a priest. Like, how would you say this kind of thing? But I don't go to my mom to tell her this is this. But what she would do is, if she sees that you are just somehow refusing to, you know, move towards this person, she will let you be. So that's a silent approach. That's not a definite approach, because you have not told me definitely to say, if you have an advance from this kind of person, the response should be no. You've just done it in a silent manner to say, it's not good, or don't
forget that you are an adult now. If you were a child, would your mother's approach would it have been different?
Yes, but then I would just literally, it's like an uncle coming to the house and she say, oh, come and greet this person. And I was given the choice to say, oh, I don't want to come downstairs. I'm upstairs. And I have an uncle who, oh, okay, they come early in the morning, drink ogogoro with my dad. And for some reason, I just don't want to go. I wasn't forced, but I wasn't, you know, told or, you know, it wasn't spelled out like that, you know. But I was just allowed to have my opinion. You know, so you don't want to.
How was you getting a voice? So you were never silent. Some children don't have an opinion. If I tell you get up and go and say hello to Father, you go and greet Father.
Don't forget that it was also a taboo at the time. It's not something you talk about.
To have this
you didn't have sit downs with parents at the time. Say, okay, these are the expectations. Or if somebody, those things were not common at the time.
But now we're talking about people.
But now
we need to be more intentional about it. Because social media and then the internet has just made everything so bizarre.
So back to what I was saying about a lot of voiceless parents now and defenseless parents now being the ones at the front line. How do you fight a battle that you are not trained for?
You can't.
You can't fight that battle. You don't have the skills. You don't have the arsenal to be able to fight the battle. So we have a lot of people who are in the position of parenting children and they don't know what to do because they are held back by the traditions of the past where it was silence. We don't talk about things like that. Even though we're in the age of social media and, you know, people doing things, everything goes viral and stuff like that, and we're beginning to have those conversations. But there are a lot of people that are still dealing with those challenges. Yeah. And the point being that a lot of children are still vulnerable to abuse one way or the other, and they still need to be protected. So what we can do today is to be able to let parents know that these are things that need to be discussed. These are things that need to be taught children. I've got children who are of various types. They're the ones that express themselves very, very easily. They're the ones that have that intimate conversation. They're the ones that are seemingly calm. But in their calmness, you know that the calmness has different levels. So you know when someone is really calm, then this is out of character. So if I did not understudy my children, I wouldn't know when things are wrong. And I've also had that conversation with them where no matter what it is, whatever you want to talk about, let's talk about it, even when you are in the wrong. So you see them coming to tell you, oh, I did this and that and that and that. And it's like, okay, how do you feel? Is it right? Is it wrong? Where do you even place yourself? Or what could you have done better given a different situation? Or if you really thought about it? Okay, maybe I should have handled it this way or that. So now they're able to express themselves and they talk about literally anything, as long as they're not comfortable about this is happening and I don't like it. And now I understand why you don't like it. This is this. So if in your own situation you had a voice, even though there was no proper training, right? But now it's important to be intentional with proper training so that children can easily identify.
Because
you could see the child was very uncomfortable initially with, first of all, he was okay with the hug, and then when he drew his face to the peck and drew his face to his lips,
there was a hesitation.
And just in addition, the parents could have also been in the crowd smiling and then also being uncomfortable with what the situation is, but they could not help. They could not run to the stage and say, bring my child. They could have been also there feeling helpless as well. So it's important that parents or guardians, I don't just want to restrict this to parents, guardians need to be sensitive. And like I said, we can't overflog it. These conversations need to be had with children, because don't underestimate the child of today. They know much more than what you think they know. So like Uwa had mentioned earlier when she said, okay, that this is a teachable moment. From time to time I ask, oh, did you hear about this news? Oh yes, so can you imagine that? What kind of person is it? Now you have the opportunity to feel the pulse, how they themselves are thinking about the situation. So it's not just about having a conversation with them, enforcing your own rules and regulations. Ask them how they feel about the situation. What do they think? Some of them you might be surprised to say, oh, I wish I was there. I could have just given him a slap on the face. So they are even potential future advocates.
Absolutely. Let me take Karen from the US. Karen, are you there? Hello?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Oh, hi. Thank you for calling.
Hello?
Go ahead. We can hear you. You're live.
Oh, okay. I started watching about halfway through the show.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that things have always been bad. I was 28 before I could see anything. So let's start from the people that we employ in our homes, because we always seem to think that the bad guy or the bad woman is outside. It starts from the house help, or the chef in the house, or the driver, or mommy's driver, daddy's driver. So they're within the home, but we're teaching our kids to always look at the stranger outside.
Thank you.
So I was 28 if I could say anything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. And I hear you clearly. And I want to say this, that abusers rather,
are familiar people.
Are familiar people. They are not people that are far from you, and you're very correct. If you go and hear the stories of people that were abused sexually as children and all of that, they will tell you, oh, there was one uncle that was living with them, there was one auntie that was living with them, there was their driver, some even their parents, their parents actually are the first abusers. So it's true. For me, what was worrisome for me in all of this is the audacity that somebody had in the presence of, so that's to tell you if this boy was secluded in a room with this person, right? Maybe God just needed that to happen so people can just, wake up. And, I'd mentioned when I started the conversation that our common friend that, made us to fall in love with doing the work of going to schools. We used to go on tours to go and talk to children on the subject of sexual abuse, what's it called, their vision, their personal hygiene, etiquette, and all of those things. We used to teach them the power of your decision, the power of your choices, how you know when you're being groomed. So some of the people are not, this guy clearly is a groomer, right? He is not coming out right to say that, come and suck my genitals. But he's grooming the boy, because what he did, these are steps of grooming. I tried a hug, you gave the hug. I tried the peck, you gave the peck, you were still comfortable. I tried the kiss on the lip, I saw a little bit of hesitation, you still came, you leaned forward and you gave me the kiss. Then of course I would try the tongue. The next thing, where do you think he was going? If there was nobody in that room, that would have been the next. He would just say, come and suck my cock. That would have been the next line of action. So there are even those ways to identify. So when we used to do all of those school tours, our ear don't fool. Parents, father abusing daughter, mother abusing son. This is your biological parent. It's not like you borrowed a child or you went to adopt a child. Your biological children. So when Karen is talking about first abusers are from the home front, she's absolutely right. Right? What we are just advocating now is that opportunities like this, parents should seek their children back. Because again, we are so quick to say, because we find it uncomfortable to make the next person uncomfortable or to disappoint the next person. Be happy disappointing people. Now before, if they tell me, say, oh, wow, I'm really disappointed in you, I would feel bad. I don't feel bad. I'm happy to disappoint you. If me disappointing you, it means I'm protecting my sanity, please, by all means, I will disappoint you. Because you see all these things in a bid to try to please people. Because you would have easily said no, but guess what? It would have been a national disgrace headline. A boy refuses, whatever. But it is better. I have protected my sanity. I've protected myself. Right? But we don't want to disappoint people. And that's why when somebody is being abused, a girl, she's afraid, what if I scream? Or, because ideally, they need you to be quiet.
The environment
everything silences you. And I always say this thing that sin thrives in secrecy, right? If you continue being quiet, abusers that were in the home front, what happened? Once this news came out, there was a friend of mine, her nephew, right? Her nephew was abusing her child. Nephew that the spouse's older sister's son. He was older, he's his mid-teens or almost late teens. Abusing her 10-year-old. Was performing the stuff with him from behind. It was when the 10-year-old was trying to now practice on the younger brother that the news came out. Because he didn't know. So he thought it was something that was normal. So the younger brother said, I will shout, I'll tell mommy, I'll tell mommy, I'll tell mommy. She now said, tell mommy what? Because every time she's around, she used to be the one to bathe them. That, oh, this person is trying to put his wee-wee in my bum-bum. She literally, when your heart will sink, she literally passed out and woke up and said, what did you say? So they started doing the investigation and now found out
traced it back.
That it was somebody that was living within the home. I'm praying that today that boy has really recovered.
Found healing.
But you see some of this madness that you see in adults today, there is a deep-seated issue from abuse and all of that. You see a girl holding herself.
History.
She doesn't want to whatever. Go and check it. Me, I was like you. I'm the one that will shout. I will make all the... My mother, I'm very stubborn. Do it as saying, why would I greet the person? Do you understand? So even abusers run away from stubborn children. Because they know that they always prey. Yes, they prey on the ones that are reclining, hiding, and all of that. So you must teach your children boldness.
Confidence.
You must teach them that confidence to be able to step up to anybody, whoever you are. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. I cannot suck your tongue. It is wrong. That's your private part, and I cannot suck it. Just imagine if that boy said that.
Yeah.
Then I will know that yes, the parents have done a good job with that boy. Do you understand? Even that kissing self. That's where that was where I would have stopped it. It's still good because in some cultures, kiss a peck on the cheek. I'm married to. We have in-laws that is French. Now they go kiss you everywhere. You go just kiss everybody. So it's fine. Some cultures even accept kissing on the lip That is their own way of greeting you, showing you are welcome. But when you now bring out your tongue, and the boy could not say no, I said, no, this has to go back to the parents.
He shyly,
you understand? It has to go back to the parents. And this is not me trying to say, oh, this is because everybody's quick to say we're always accusing parents. No. We're saying that if today you are a parent that you are watching and you have not started teaching your children, you must teach them. Even it is in old age I learned how to say no.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Even hugs. Do you
understand?
Like,
some people
as
yes.
I'm older now, I'm learning that
it's not everybody you hug.
Everybody. Really
anything that makes you feel
uncomfortable,
please by all means say no. Stand up. And it's the most about, like I said, it's the power that you can give a child, the ability to express how they feel and be okay with it, because that's another thing.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, back when we were growing up, they were not allowed to, you know, if they said go and greet an uncle, you say, I don't feel. Nobody asked questions. That's where you were talking about, Jennifer, about saying, oh, why are you, what's wrong with this?
So someone says,
so it's important.
Santos, he says, please, you need to find out if what happened between Dalai Lama and the boy was part of their culture. Maybe we are just experiencing culture shock. Or could not be culture shock, because even the Dalai Lama came out to apologize.
What do you
it's
mean
not
by
culture shock. Do you understand? I've never seen any culture that will stick out his tongue and tell him, suck my tongue. They bring out their hand for you to kiss their hand. Do you understand? Some cultures, they'll bring out their hand for you to kiss their hand. They can give you a peck on the cheek. Some give a peck on the lip, but not bringing out your tongue.
You know,
if it was a cultural thing, he would not have come out to apologize.
Comments like this upset me and irks my soul so much, because these are the type of people that are always looking for a different angle.
No, it's good. But we don't have time.
I get that he's asking about culture, but you read the full story, and that's where I'm coming from. The full story, because he, who is supposed to be the spiritual leader, came out to apologize. If he didn't apologize, and the people from his whatever have backed him up and said, oh, that's a different thing, but that wasn't mentioned. And if it was part of their culture, he wouldn't have apologized. So why are you coming from that angle?
Just quickly, very quickly, what he was also saying, the person that sent this message, it goes back to culture, the culture of silence. Rather than deal with a situation, would rather paint it, cover it, because of who is also connected to.
So a spiritual leader.
Absolutely. So we have to run off. Sorry, we have a very, very disturbing message here. Somebody's crying. We're going to deal with this issue now. Please, before we go, ensure you send us and follow us across all our social media handles. If you missed our quote for today, here it is again. This thing is deeper than what we're saying. You know, I'm just trying to not be emotional here. That's why I'm quiet. We must protect families. We must protect children. We have an inalienable right, and who have inalienable rights and should be loved, should be taken care of physically, mentally, and should not be brought into the world to suffer in any form. Please, let's start to talk to our children. Parents, you need to protect your children. The world is vicious, so you must viciously guard your children. I don't joke with children, anybody that knows me. Please, we'll bring back the conversation. It has not ended. See you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen.
The hair industry is a multi-million naira business in Nigeria. The industry has experienced impressive growth in recent years. From the sale of hair extensions, wigs, and hair care products, it is a huge market and it is largely buoyed by patronage from women. Women are mostly identified by their hair, but does that mean without hair they have no identity? Definitely not. There is a condition called alopecia. It causes the partial or complete absence of hair from areas of the body where it normally grows. And for women who have it, they experience baldness. We met an alopecian, Jasmine Oguns, who shared her story with us.
Alopecia is an autoimmune disease, but we alopecians like to define it as an autoimmune condition, so we don't scare people. So alopecia is an autoimmune condition that happens when the immune system attacks the hair follicles, thereby causing partial or total hair loss. You know, the immune system is actually supposed to protect us from germs, diseases, and sickness. But in this case, the immune system attacks the hair follicles because it sees the hair follicles as a stranger to the body system, so it attacks it. And once the hair follicles get attacked, then there's a problem in the roots of hair growth. Yeah, so that's where hair loss starts from. I started having hair loss in 2004. That was my first year in school, in higher institution. Before then, I used to have very long hair, like very beautiful hair. And a particular day, I went to the salon and my hairstylist noticed a bald patch behind my head, just around here. It was very tiny, very insignificant, but she noticed it because she has been making my hair for a long time. Yeah, so she noticed it and called my attention to it, but I didn't pay so much attention to it because I felt it was a minor thing and my hair was going to grow back. So after 2 weeks, I went back to make my hair. She noticed another one on this side. She called my attention to it again, so I became scared. I informed my mom about it, and my mom also didn't see it as a big issue. She just said it would grow back. And after a while, the patches started increasing, and they started forming a map on my scalp. I stopped going to the salon to make my hair. It became a thing of concern, and someone told my mom it was lakpa caused by dandruff. But then I didn't have dandruff, so where did it come from? So she got sulfur, started applying sulfur on the scalp, but instead of it to get better, it got worse. That was how the alopecia journey started for me. How I knew it was alopecia. Okay, before I got to that point, it was a whole journey. Because after the lakpa episode, there was always an extended family member who would come up with one name or the other. In fact, it metamorphosed to spiritual problem. So they tagged it a spiritual problem. I know in this part of the world, anything we don't know is automatically a spiritual problem. So that was when the frustration started. They started taking me from one pastor to another, and because most of these people, they're about what they can get into their pockets, they second, you know, and it was really traumatizing, you know, and I didn't know until after 10 years. Yeah, I didn't know it was alopecia until after 10 years. So I'll share a bit of my experience in that journey. First, some pastors said someone took my hair to the ocean. That's why I don't have hair. But there are some sacrifices here and there that we could perform that would make my hair grow. So I had times that I killed cows. I had times that I killed chickens. There were times we just give out the cows raw, like the meat, the pieces, you know. raw like that. There were times we cook and feed people with it, just in the quest for my hair to grow back. And there were other ugly experiences I had too, ugly encounters I had of some spiritual men asking to have some form of intimacy with me before my hair could grow. Like, it was really traumatizing. It was annoying. It was frustrating, because at some point I got depressed, and I got to meet with a dermatologist who introduced some hairsprays to me that I used. It didn't work. And the moment I stopped using the spray, my hair fell off. In fact, at this point, I now lost my hair completely because the spray did not work. You understand? So it triggered some other hormones, and then I lost my hair completely. So I became completely bald. You know, initially, it was just in patches. And then after applying those sprays, I lost my hair completely. And I used that spray for a period of 1 year and 6 months. And at that time, a spray cost 15,000 naira. So I must use a can, like I must buy a new can every fortnight. It was a fortnight thing. I was buying a new can every fortnight. And I administered it for 1.5 years. But instead of it to get better, it got worse. And I still did not stop. I wanted the solution. I wanted my hair back. So I approached another dermatologist who placed me on a wrong medication. And because I was so desperate, I didn't even bother to ask, what is this thing you're placing me on? What is this medication for? I didn't know it was using me as a specimen. For every time I got 0.1 mg, I took 5 as a dose. For every time I got 0.5 mg, I took 10 as a dose. So that was an abuse. And I discovered that my memory was diminishing. So at that point, I had to stop. But it had already caused some damage, and I became depressed. And I became suicidal as well. So at some point, I became suicidal. I almost died because I made a suicidal attempt. But thank God my mother was at home on that particular day, and she saved me. So it has been from one bad encounter, one bad experience to another until 2015, when I decided I was going to do a personal research to know what exactly my problem was. And that was how I stumbled on the word alopecia on the internet. And I realized it was a condition, or it is a condition. Like what I've been going through actually has a name, and the name is alopecia. So that was how I got to know that the condition is alopecia. I started embracing myself in 2015. Yeah, that was when I did the personal research that I became aware. And okay, I stumbled on a particular lady's story online, and I started following her up. Her daughter has alopecia, and I saw the way she instilled confidence in her daughter at every stage that her daughter was encountering. Like, it started with bald patch. From one bald patch, it increased to patches, and then she lost almost everything, and there were just few strands of hair left. I saw the way she would pack the hair into ponytail and go everywhere with it, you know. So I admired that. But I noticed that while I was doing my research, I didn't really see much of black people with the same condition. There were more of white people. And within me, I resolved that I could be a strength to other people, especially black people who are going through this same experience, who are experiencing the same thing. Because looking back to how my journey started, it wasn't funny. And at that point, I knew there were people who were going through worse situation than what I went through. So I decided I was going to be a voice to other people. I was going to to stand my ground and create awareness. Though in the process of doing that, I opened up to a few persons, media personnel, who did not really understand my story, and they made a mess of it because I wanted to do a come out video. You get? So they made a mess of it and turned it to a comedy skit. That was when I knew there's really no bad publicity, because that was when I met my deputy, Moshudat Badmos. I was really sad about it because the whole thing went bad for me. You know, it went viral. A lot of people saw it. A lot of people misunderstood the message because they actually did not pass the message right. A lot of people misunderstood it. So it went sour, and she came online, saw the ridicule and everything, and she started fighting for me. So she was like the voice I didn't have at that downtime, at that point in time. So I approached her and I was like, you seem to know about alopecia. Do you have alopecia? She said yes. He needed to see the joy that I felt that day. Like I didn't feel that kind of joy in 10 years. I was so excited. I was so happy. I contacted her immediately. We started talking, and before you knew it, I was on my way to, then she was in Ogun State. I was on my way to Ogun State from Kaduna. I took a trip to Ogun State just to meet her because, you know, it was relieving for you to see someone or know that there's someone who can relate, you know, to whatever it is you were going through. Because before then, people around me could not understand. There were times I wanted to talk. I wanted to just, you know, explain how I was feeling, but I didn't have people to talk to, because even when I talk, they don't understand. You understand? It was more like a mental thing for me. But when I met her, it was relieving. I felt so much relief because she could relate. Yeah, she understood where I was coming from, and that was how the foundation journey started.
The National Alopecia Areata Foundation states that alopecia affects about 147 million people in the world, and according to Africa Prime News, there are over 100,000 persons living with alopecia in Nigeria.
It has not been easy running the Heroic Alopecia Foundation because, okay, one thing is for people to know what their condition is. Another thing is for them to come out, right? So, like I said, when I met Moshudat, that was when the foundation journey started. Though I'd already started single-handedly before I met her, and then we took the race together, and we continued the race. Then some other members joined, and we grew to about 13 members, and in the process, we got to know more. We got to know that alopecia is actually a journey. You get? Some would accept the fact that this is what it is. Some may never accept it. But it's a good thing that you are aware that this is what the problem is, right? And we realize that a lot of people are out there suffering that don't know what this condition is. And they really need to know, because if you know that you have a problem and you know what that problem is, I think your problem is half solved already. So what we do basically is try to reach out to people, try to create awareness. Thanks to BBC Pidgin, I was featured on BBC Pidgin last year, and as a result of that publicity, our member strength grew from 13 to 70. Yeah, so right now we have 70 members. Majority are Nigerians. We have few of them in Ghana, some in Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Senegal, America, London. So we still feel there's a need for us to create more awareness, because if you'd ask for my opinion, I would say only 2% of people in Nigeria are aware of this condition called alopecia. I think a lot has to be done, a lot needs to be done concerning awareness. There was a training I went for recently at Nikkei Art Gallery, and on the first few days of the training, I didn't go with my wig. I didn't wear my wig, and nobody really paid attention to the fact that I don't have hair. I only got comments like, your hairstyle is nice, and because of what I went there for, I didn't have that time to explain to them that it's not a hairstyle but a health condition. Until after 5 days, I decided to wear my wig. So I went there with a wig, and after a while, I started feeling uncomfortable with my wig on, so I removed it. And people were like, it's better. You look better without your wig than with your wig. So another question popped up from someone else, that why the hairstyle? What inspired the hairstyle? And I told them it's not a hairstyle, but it's a health condition. So that got a lot of people's attention, and they're like, oh really, it's a health condition, tell us about it. So while I was talking, I heard whispers of two persons arguing about one Tope somewhere that has a similar condition, and the other person said, no, it's not the same. Tope's case is spiritual. You know, they were arguing in their dialect, in Kaba actually. So I heard and I paused and asked, why did you say Tope's condition is spiritual? He said, because hers is not completely off like mine. She has patches and all. I said, yes, the patch is a form of alopecia actually. Like, there are different types of alopecia. Hers is alopecia areata. That's the medical term for her condition. And they're like, oh really? I said, yes. So I went as far as explaining to them that there's also a condition called alopecia totalis, where it's just limited to the head alone. You know, the hair loss is limited to the head alone. And I also explained about alopecia universalis, where the victim loses the lashes, the brows, and every other part of the body that has hair. And they were amazed. So when they told me a lot about Tope, I told them I was interested in meeting Tope. But guess what? Tope is dead. Tope died as a result of isolation. Tope died as a result of stigmatization. I also heard of the story of one woman in Benue State that died as a result of stigmatization. She was tagged a witch because her hair stopped growing, and she was isolated, far away from people. You know, they stopped giving her food, and that was how she died. I also heard of some girls in Benin who were constantly tied and flogged with broom because they have alopecia. And at the moment, we have two parents in Kaduna who are representing their sons because they are kids. One is 6 years old, the other one is 7. There's this belief in the north, when strange things happen to you, they just assume you have anjanu, like a spiritual problem, like evil spirits. I think anjanu is evil spirits. And they kept burning their scalps with fire, that they are chasing away the anjanu, until they met me. Someone actually told me about them, and I went to visit the family. So when I got there and I removed my wig, I saw the relief. You know, there was this sigh of relief that, oh, okay, so this thing is not happening to our son alone. There are other people who have this thing, and it's a medical condition. You understand? So a lot needs to be done concerning awareness.
Alopecia can affect anyone regardless of age and gender, and in many cases, it takes a toll on their relationships.
To an extent, alopecia has affected my relationship with people, because I remember back then in school, when it started at first, I didn't start covering it immediately. I still rocked it, and after a while, I started covering it with a scarf. And my friends were surprised, like, when did you start covering your hair? You were not like this, what's the problem? And some of them just tried to be naughty and they pulled the scarf off. And when they realized that there was something strange about my head, some gave space. The naughty ones tagged it a name. Some started calling me an alien. Like when I applied the spray and everything fell off, like I lost every strand of hair on my body. I'm talking about my lashes, my brows, every part of my body. I didn't have hair. I had a friend who was constantly calling me an alien, like to my face, and people would laugh about it. It became embarrassing at some point. And then relationship, yeah, I had a major relationship then that failed as a result of alopecia because my supposed to-be mother-in-law called off the wedding introduction, 3 days to the wedding introduction, because of fear of the unknown. You know, she didn't want a situation whereby our grandchildren would have hair loss problems, so she called off the wedding introduction, not minding how far we had gone, and then the preparation for the event and all that. Then the last disappointment I got to was as a result of alopecia, because I went for a consultation with the person I was dating at that time, and he heard all the medical advice I got about me. Like the dermatologist advised that I should not bother myself because at this stage, at this point, the hair loss has really it has gotten to an advanced stage where my hair might not grow anymore, you understand? So he heard all of that, and his countenance changed on our way home. So out of curiosity, I tried to question him about his mood and everything, and he said he's scared, doesn't want to raise kids that would not have hair. So to a great extent, alopecia has affected my relationship with people. Alopecia has really affected my family in a lot of ways. Like my mom, right now, she still does not accept the fact that it is a medical condition. She's yet to come to terms with the fact that it's a medical condition. She still feels that there's more to it and the hair would grow. Yes, the hair could grow because alopecia actually has a mind of its own. The way it decides to go off, like the way your hair decides to go off, it could just decide to start growing overnight. That's another mysterious thing about alopecia because it has to do with your immune system. So your immune system might just decide, okay, I want to be good, I want to be perfect, and then your hair starts growing again, you understand? So it has really affected my family because I remember when I didn't know what it was, I was constantly being stigmatized because my mother would always have a scarf or a cap or something beside her. And the moment someone knocks at the door, she's throwing it at me to cover my head. I didn't like that part. I didn't like the fact that I could not just be myself, you know, and feel free like every other person. I didn't like the fact that I have to always cover my head, you know. And another thing is it became a prayer request. Like till now, it's still a prayer request. Everyone is always praying at some point, at one point or the other, for my hair to grow back. Yeah, so it has really affected my family, not just me.
1 in 20 people with alopecia also has a family member who has experienced the condition, which implies that most people that have alopecia usually don't have family members with this condition.
I'm not too sure that the awareness is really there. Having said so, I mean, if we think about the patients who come into the clinic, alopecia is, at least what I would say, some studies have shown that is one of the top 10 dermatology consultations. And because the world is generally getting more visual, everybody's more concerned about appearance, and we talk about quality of life and all this. So you're seeing a lot more patients coming in. They're coming in. Areata in itself, a lot of people don't know. I don't think the awareness is really there. But remember that when you are dealing with a specialty, so if we talk in the general population, maybe no, but if you come into the specialty community, specialty hospital, we'll see we have a bit, a high enough number of cases. But I would say if you just ask for the general population, no. And so to the next question of how can we make them more aware of what you're doing? If we have people who suffer from, I remember that because of the stigma of alopecia, everybody knows that a woman's hair is supposed to be like her crowning glory. She wants to do things with it. She wants to look well. You don't really want to cover it. But with wigs and weaves, nobody knows who has what. Now, a lot of women will just take it out. So you don't know who has a problem because of the stigma or the quality of life. Very, very significant impact on the quality of life. So people are hiding. People are not able to get. And some people go to those who don't really know what to do. Some people, the salon, the hairstylist, who should almost be like your first sort of, oh, madam, or girl, as the case may be, what's happening to your hair? Do you think you need to see somebody? Most times they might give you their own version of what they think works, and the hair loss is worsening. Where ideally, if you present early enough in alopecia areata, you may just be able to break that autoimmunity.
Alopecia often develops suddenly over the course of just a few days. This condition affects the mental health of the victims and sometimes makes them withdrawn.
Dealing with stigmatization before I became aware was not easy. I had days that I cried. I had days I didn't want to see anybody. Like, I locked myself up in the room for days, for weeks. There were days I didn't want to see my immediate family members, my downtime and all, as a result of stigmatization. Like I mentioned earlier, that there was a time I was depressed. It was as a result of stigmatization, because I felt stigmatized by everybody, even those that were close to me. You know, at every point in time, I was expecting people to show me love. So at every moment that I don't, at every time that I don't get that kind of love that I expect, you know, I feel stigmatized. So it was really ugly for me. But the moment I got to know that this is what it is, I became free. You know, I got some form of liberty, I got some form of liberation, and I don't get stigmatized anymore. So when people try to mock me now, I just laugh at their ignorance. And if I have the opportunity to educate them, I don't hesitate.
Alopecia can cause a lot of anxiety and sadness. It is important we have more support groups in the society to help people living with alopecia deal with the psychological effects of this condition.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
On Plus TV News Now, AGF Malami Finance Minister Accountant General summoned over alleged $2.4 billion oil fraud. Police seal off Plateau Assembly Complex until crisis is resolved. Two aid workers killed in troubled Amara region of Ethiopia. And IMF warns deeper financial turmoil would slam global growth. Good evening. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. This is News Now. The federal lawmaker representing Ikpoba Federal Constituency of Edo State in the 8th National Assembly, Honorable Johnson Agwunayima, has blamed highly placed cabal for the humongous revenue loss in the oil and gas sector. The lawmaker made his allegation at the ongoing public hearing on alleged loss of over $2.4 billion on revenue from illegal sale of 48 million barrels of crude oil export in 2015, including crude oil export from 2014 till date. Plus TV Emmanuel Ehejene reports is presented from our studio.
The other committee was set up on December 2022 after a motion brought before the House by Honorable Ibrahim Ishaka on the need to investigate the serious loss recorded by the country in crude oil sale, amounting to billions of dollars. The Speaker, Femi Bajabiamila, who was represented by Honorable Ishaka in his welcome address, stated that Sections 88 and 89, including the House rule, gave the House power to set up an other committee to investigate the alleged crude oil theft. This was buttressed by the chairman of the other committee, Honorable Mark Bila, who assured the invited organizations that the aim of the investigation is not to witch hunt, but rather to address corruption.
In the light of the dwindling revenue accruing to the Nigeria from crude oil sales, it was quite alarming to learn about the whistleblowers' allegations that over $2.4 billion in possible revenue by the country was allegedly lost from the sale of 48 million barrels of Nigeria's crude oil cargoes in China.
While we will not allow Nigeria's commonwealth to be stolen and frittered away, we will also have to uphold the very tenets of human rights and the rule of law to say that everybody deserves a right to a fair hearing.
In his submission, a former lawmaker representing Ikpoba Oka Federal Constituency in 8th Legislative Assembly blamed the huge oil theft on the activities of cabals in the country who are determined to derail the wheel of progress in Nigeria.
Through critical NFPC data and the central bank pre-shipment inspection report shows an undeclared crude oil shortfall of 57,830,000 of Nigeria crude oil, translating to well over $17 billion to the United States of America. Also, over $3 billion to China and 839,522,600,000 to Norway.
Oriental Energy and the Nigeria Intelligence Agency were present but could not make submissions, but were however given 1 week to make a presentation. While the NNPC, CBN, AGF, Upstream Regulatory Commission, Ministry of Finance, Account General Office and others all shunned first day of the hearing as the committee adjourned to next week.
The Joe Youth Council, IYC Worldwide, has threatened to occupy all Shell Petroleum Development Company SPDC facilities in Niger Delta to protest its alleged violation of Nigerian content laws and the deprivation of host communities and local contractors in Bayelsa, Delta and River States of what should be theirs. IYC national spokesman Ebilade Ekerefe, who addressed newsmen in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, said despite the intervention of senior officials of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, officials of the SPDC have terminated jobs meant for indigenous contractors, describing the situation as unacceptable.
Few indigenous contractors that we have that are doing well, we cannot allow anybody, no matter how highly placed you are, to stop them from benefiting from the exploration and the exploitation that is going on in the Niger Delta region. And so while we are not giving any ultimatum, they should expect to see the occupation of youth from this region in their facilities if this illegality is not being reversed.
President Muhammad Buhari is committed to the creation of job opportunities for youths in Niger Delta. This is according to the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Umana, who spoke at the commissioning of a multi-skilled vocational development center in Edo State. Represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Olufonsho Adebiyi, the minister described the training facility as one of the gains of the infrastructure agenda of the Buhari administration. Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has for the first time responded to accusations that it failed to follow the Electoral Act 2022 and also failed to abide by its own guidelines on mode of collation of results in the last presidential election. The development comes in response to a petition by the Action People's Party, APP, before the Presidential Election Petitions Court in Abuja. The APP is challenging the result of the presidential poll and the declaration of the All Progressives Congress APC standard bearer, Bola Tinubu, on the grounds of alleged substantial non-compliance with the electoral laws of Nigeria, as well as breach of the INEC guidelines. But in reply to the suit instituted by one of the parties, the APP, INEC, through one of its lawyers, Abubakar Mahmood, insisted that it conducted free and fair polls on February 25. The APP had alleged that INEC breached its own laws and guidelines. However, INEC dismissed the party's argument that result collation were to be done electronically, citing paragraph 50 to 55 of the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of the 2023 presidential election. It also dismissed the allegation that its officials doctored results to favor a particular political party's candidate or that there was overvoting. The dates for hearing of the 5 petitions so far received from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, the Labour Party, LP, and APP, Action Alliance, and the Allied People's Movement, APM, is yet to be fixed by the PEPC. We're now being joined by a legal practitioner, Mike Omunan. Welcome to the news.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're just concerned what your take is on INEC saying that the electronic collation of results was not a mandatory requirement.
Very simple. I want to say that the body called INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission, was created by the Nigerian Constitution and given authority and powers to carry out electoral functions in Nigeria. And so it derives its authority from the Constitution. Section 153, subsection 2 of the Constitution created this body. Now, Section 160 of this same Constitution gives INEC the power to make its own internal regulations to regulate its activities, the processes of election, and every other thing. Now, taking advantage of that section, INEC enacted its own regulation, which is the regulation that was used for this election. And then the regulation in section 38 introduced electronic collation or transmission of results into the system. And after that introduction, because that is the discretion that section 160 gave to of the Constitution gave to INEC to create its own regulation, that the discretion, and to use that to create its own way of managing or carrying out electoral activities. That discretion was done by the enactment of this regulation. And this regulation introduced electronic transmission. So there's no more discretion for INEC. Once it says in section 38 of the regulation that election results will be transmitted from the polling unit by the electoral officers, then it means that there's no longer discretion for INEC to say that they are going to use both manual transmission and electronic transmission, the manual collation and electronic transmission. That would have been possible if that regulation was not enacted, and then INEC went out of its way to inform Nigerians that it is going to transmit results live, real time, from polling units. It gave Nigerians that confidence. And that was why many Nigerians trooped out to the street to carry out their civic responsibility. I do not want to align with the position that INEC has a discretion to now decide on the day of the election to transmit some results and then collect some results manually. So my thinking is that this is an afterthought. This is wrong from inception. INEC has no discretion to transmit results electronically. I mean, it has no discretion to collect results outside the transmission by electronic means that it itself introduced into the regulation.
Okay, what happens by law if due process is jettisoned? In this case, the due process will be the electronic transmission of results of this election. What happens by law if anybody, any party, any organization jettisons what is supposed to be done as provided for by law?
It's very simple. It's a cancellation of that result. It is a cancellation of the result that was not transmitted, that was not done based on the laid down procedure and law of the state. So if that was not done by INEC, the resulting effect is that election will be cancelled. That is a position of the law. And if somebody says that election was not, the electoral body did not comply with the electronic transmission of the result, and by reason of that election was marred with irregularity, what that person is actually going to ask the tribunal to do is to cancel that election. And the tribunal cannot now say, since this election was not transmitted electronically as was supposed to be done, and by reason of that, irregularities were inferred, and so the election was not won by this person, but was won by this other person. No, it would be cancelled. That is the position of the law, sir.
So if it is proven beyond reasonable doubt that what was supposed to be done was not done, this election, there's a possibility it could be cancelled.
That is the position of the law. It must be cancelled.
Okay, just a little digression before we let you go. Some people have called for the speedy treatment of all the matters before the court, the election tribunals, before the day of inauguration. Do you think this is a possibility?
It is possible. It's quite possible. And I want to believe that there's nothing that the tribunal will want to do that they cannot do now. Because the best method, the best way to get these issues sorted out without any violence, without any problem on the inauguration day, is to ensure that this election tribunal decides the case before the day of inauguration. If this is done, it will be very easy for somebody to know, to say, well, this is what the court has said, and then the inauguration will go on. If the court now decides to nullify or cancel that result, that election, that means that another election will have to be held. There are going to be issues, constitutional issues, but then that can always be handled. The court has the wisdom to know the pronouncement to make in the circumstances to take care of the value, because there must be no vacuum in government.
Is the date May 29 sacrosanct by law? That it cannot be changed?
Yeah, very well. That date is sacrosanct by law, because if that date is not kept, it it means that something else, unless there is an intervention of natural element that will cause it not to be possible for that inauguration to be held, or the election is cancelled, as in this case. If this is done, then the tribunal will now give a direction on what else to be done in the circumstance.
Okay, but what if it gets to May 29th and maybe something happens, like you've said, or the elections is cancelled, and there is no provision in the Constitution for an interim government, and the tenure of the present administration will end on May 29th? What happens now to Nigeria? How will it be administered beyond that?
Quickly, the theory of necessity will come in, because where the law has not made provision for a particular issue, and certain things, because it was not envisaged in the first place, and certain things happen, then the doctrine of necessity comes in. The issue of interim government can be by way of necessity. Let it come to stay, to take care of the vacuum, the situation between the time that election is going to be conducted properly, another body that will be conduct the election and all that is set up, and everything will be done according to the books, according to the law. That interim government can become legal by reason of the doctrine of necessity.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Omonnan, for giving us perspective on the news.
Thank you very much, brother. God bless you.
Okay, we've been talking with a legal practitioner, Mike Omonnan, who is talking to us about what is going on here and whether or not it is possible to have that inauguration or the legalities surrounding electronic transmission of results. The governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has stated that he and his party, the People's Democratic Party, do not trust the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to keep data and materials from the last election safe. He stated that because he and his party do not trust the electoral umpire of opposition parties, he had taken the liberty to save data from the elections in a flash drive, which he displayed. He spoke during an interview with journalists in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital.
If you have not had experience about after election, what you may see, then you will be shocked. So we're being extra vigilant because we know what our opponents are capable of doing. I can tell you, I can tell you something. You see, we are also letting them know that we are not people you can go. We have this. All the plans, all the results they have printed to come and bring to the table, we have it. It's a flash. I'm telling you, all the things they have planned to do. It's not their business. The source of information is not matter. What's material is the relevance of it. They're not authentic, is the matter. That's what we're saying. It's not, see, you are dealing with criminals. And you must be extra vigilant. People can go to every land to procure documents, and you'll be shocked what you see in the tribunal. You'll be shocked. And most of you, all you gather is that, oh, this happened. Most of you don't even attend the tribunals to witness yourself. So that when you are coming out to make report, you can be sure that you are talking authoritatively, not what clients or lawyers on the other side brief you. What you see in tribunal, you'll be so shocked.
Speaking on the arrest of some lawyers of opposition parties in the state in relation to allegations of fraud, the governor stated that the arrests were in order and that it was left to the police to investigate and establish whether or not a crime was committed. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has told the Presidential Election Petition Court, PEPC, to dismiss the suit filed by Peter Obi of the Labour Party because the reliefs sought are not grantable. Nigeria's electoral body, INEC, disclosed this at the PEPC's secretariat by its lawyer, Abubakar Mahmood, in Abuja. The commission asked the court to either dismiss or strike out the suit for being nebulous, generic, grossly incompetent, abusive, vague, general, non-specific, ambiguous, equivocal, and hypothetical and academic. INEC has fixed Saturday, April 15 to conduct elections in polling units where the exercise was suspended in Port Harcourt 2 and Gokana federal constituencies of Rivers State on February 25. A spokesperson in Rivers, Mrs. Geraldine Ekelemu, quoted the resident electoral commissioner, Dr. Johnson Alalibo, as saying that elections would be conducted in 42 polling units and at registration areas 04 and 07 in Gokana. In a statement issued in Port Harcourt, elections would hold in 377 polling units and in registration areas 05, 10 to 18 in Port Harcourt 2 constituency. The People's Democratic Party, PDP governorship, and the Labour Party governorship candidates have filed a petition against the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the Lagos State Governor-elect, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. The PDP candidate Abdulaziz Adediran, known as Jandor, and the LP candidate Gbadebo Ross Vival separately asked the tribunal to nullify Sanwo-Olu's return and declare them the winner of the poll. The Lagos State Election Petitions Tribunal had received a total of 48 petitions in respect of the 2023 elections held on February 25 and March 11. The petitions were pasted on the wall of the Rosaline Omotosho Courthouse, Ikeja, venue of the tribunal sitting. A breakdown of petitions against Sanwo-Olu showed that 4 petitions were filed to challenge the governorship election. Others are the Allied People's Movement, APM, and the Action People's Party, APP. Rhodes Vival, who filed a sole petitioner, listed 3 grounds on which his petition was based. He alleged that Sanwo-Olu was not qualified to contest election at the time the election took place. Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Frank Yaya, has applauded what he called professional conduct during the recently held general elections. The Chief of Army Staff, who gave the commendation at a luncheon at the Maimalari Barracks Officers' Mess, Maiduguri, Borno State, said the nation is proud of the professionalism displayed all through the electioneering period. Represented by Major General Kolo Isoni, the Theatre Commander Operations Hadin Kai, Yahya paid tribute to fallen heroes and wounded personnel receiving medical attention across the military facilities. The luncheon, which featured musical interlude by Army Band, coincided with the Ramadan observation by Muslim faithful. In the meantime, a Zuba Magistrate Court in Abuja has refused to grant bail to the passenger who was debarked and handed over to the police for making a sensitive statement about President-elect Bola Tinubu on board an Ibom Air Abuja-Lagos bound flight. Ruling in the bail application filed by Uja through his counsel, Senior Magistrate Mohammed Abdulaziz Ismail, held that the application was premature. He held that the exhibits attached to the application did not say the defendant was unfit to face trial, but rather indicated he was of unsound mind. He also held that while the Constitution guarantees every person's liberty, a court can deprive a person of it based on health grounds. Citing the provisions of Section 35(1)(e) of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and Section 278 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, ACJA 2015, the magistrate held that Uja cannot be granted bail. He subsequently ordered that Uja be held at the Kuje Correctional Center of the Nigerian Correctional Service and adjourned until April 20 for report and hearing. The All Progressives Congress APC has opened up on circumstances that led its candidate and President-elect Bola Tinubu to forfeit the sum of $460,000 to the government of the United States of America, USA, in 1993. The ruling party in processes it filed to defend the outcome of the presidential election that was held on February 25 maintained that Tinubu, who was its candidate, merely surrendered funds in 10 bank accounts that were opened in either his name or that of Compass Finance and Investment Company. It told the Presidential Election Petitions Court, sitting at the Court of Appeal in Abuja, that funds in the said accounts, which were domiciled in both First Heritage Bank and Citibank N.A., were subject to a civil forfeiture proceedings in case number 93C4483. According to the APC, the purported decision of the United States District Court, Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division in the said case was not a fine, but a decree of forfeiture of the amount of $460,000 to the United States pursuant to the settlement of claim by the parties to the case. While urging the court to strike out petitions against Tinubu, the APC argued that Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party, who alleged that Tinubu was convicted for a drug-related case, lacked the requisite locus standi to challenge the outcome of the presidential election. A group, not Central Coalition for Good Governance, has urged the All Progressives Congress APC to zone the position of Speaker of the 10th Assembly to its region. Speaking at a press conference in Abuja, the group's convener, Abraham Dauda, said the leadership of the ruling party should back Yusuf Gaji, a member of the House of Representatives from Plateau, to occupy the position.
The speakership of the 10th Assembly should be zoned to the north Central region to bring about inconclusiveness in the scheme of affairs in the country. The strategic importance of the North Central region in the country must be considered. As such, the emphasis of the North Central region producing the Speaker of the 10th Assembly will bring about the much-needed synergy and sense of belonging in leading the country to greater heights. This much, the APC and other political parties must come to terms with, given that there is a need for fair and equal representation by all regions in the country. The case of the 10th Assembly will prove to be anti-progressive if factors such as the were not considered.
The Plateau State Police Commissioner Bartholomew Onyeka says the command was forced to seal off the Plateau House of Assembly complex last week following intelligence of the possible breakdown of law and order in the House following the reinstatement of Aruba Abok as the Speaker. The Commissioner said even though they were not properly served with the details of the judgment which reinstated Ayuba Abok as the Speaker, the command is one of the defendants has filed an appeal on stay of action.
Personnel to the State House of Assembly wasn't targeted against any person or group of persons. It was merely preventive to maintain peace, protect lives and properties, and to prevent the breakdown of law and order. As I will not just be here, watch members of the State House of Assembly turn the Plateau State House of Assembly either into a boxing ring or a battlefield. After taking such measures, the police, who is also a party in the suit, filed injunctions of appeal and stay of execution on the same 3rd of April 2023, which was equally served on the parties concerned. From that period, series of meetings have been held with the view towards ensuring that the Plateau State House of Assembly complex is secured adequately.
The CP also tasked the Plateau House of Assembly members to resolve the issues within the House without fracturing the relative peace being enjoyed in the state.
And the Commissioner of Police, that is myself, will not fold his arms and watch the honorable members of the State House of Assembly behave dishonorably. My powers as the Commissioner of Police as enshrined in Section 214 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, and Section 4 of the Police Act, like I've initially referred to, is equally very, very relevant here. Therefore, I urge all abiding citizens of Plateau to go about their lawful businesses and wearing parties to seek peaceful ways of settling their differences in accordance with the rule of law.
The Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of Force Criminal Investigation Department, Lagos, Frank Mba, has charged the newly promoted officers from the Ogun State Police Command to provide the necessary leadership towards effective security architecture and policing in their respective new offices. He made the charge while decorating some senior police officers that include an Assistant Commissioner of Police to Deputy Commissioner of Police, 6 chief superintendents of police to assistant commissioner of police, and 14 superintendents of police to the rank of chief superintendent of police. He also asked them to be part of the solutions to the current security challenges facing the country and its effect on the socio-economic and political development.
Promotion is a celebration of your past excellence, or what you've done for the force and what you've done for our country and the past. But it is more than that. It is also a recognition of your potentials to do more. And that is where your key responsibilities actually lie. That recognition of your innate and inherent capacity to serve the force, the nation, and our people in bigger capacity going forward is actually the most important component of your promotion.
The Delta State Executive Council has directed the Ministry of Works to ensure that the Sector C2 of the Asaba-Ogili dualization project is completed before the end of the tenure of the present administration of the state. The State Commissioner for Information, Charles Aniagu, said this while briefing journalists on some of the decisions reached at the State Executive Council meeting presided over by Governor Ifeanyi Okowa at Government House, Asaba, Delta State. Aniagu explained that a lot of works have been done on the Sector C2 of the Asaba-Ogili dualized road from Koka flyover and interchange to Ogwashu-Ku Junction.
So to this school, in continuation of our desire to connect a number of our communities, we also proceeded to approve some roads for construction, even as we gave instruction to supervising ministries to reach out to different contractors that are handling a number of projects, very critical projects. The governor has directed that the SSG should liaise with the authorities at the Warri Uwe and Environs Development Agency.
Aniagu, however, said that the Secretary to the State Government, Chief Patrick Uka, has been mandated by EXCO to liaise with the authorities of Warri Uwe and Environs Development Agency on ways to fast-track the process of actualizing the flood control project in the area.
For the purpose of fast-tracking the control of flood in the Warri houses, so that we will know how well we can proceed and possibly conclude a number of the ongoing projects to which we have indeed invested huge sums of state resources. And that our commitment to control the floods in the Warri houses is with a view to align government to proceed to also construct some of the roads that are in dire need of either rehabilitation or construction.
Former Governor of Anambra State, Dr. Chinwoke Mbadinuju, has died at the age of 77. A statement issued on Tuesday on behalf of the family by Chetachi Mbadinuju said the former governor died on Tuesday morning at the National Hospital, Abuja, after a brief illness. Born June 14, 1945, Mbadinuju obtained a BA in Political Science and a doctorate in government. He gained a law degree from one of the best English universities, and he was an editor of Times International. Still ahead, China continues combat training around Taiwan after drills end. Details when we return.
An African girl somewhere is sitting at home, accompanied by dreams that seem so far away. Africa is one of the continents with the highest out-of-school percentage in education, and girls are at an early disadvantage. The sub-Saharan Africa records about 18 million out-of-school girls. This gender gap extends to the tech space with a projection of only a 33% global female workforce representation in tech firms for 2022. Let us help change the stories and numbers. Africa Agility's Project Train a Girl campaign is working to help train African girls in tech. You can donate as little as $2 or 2,000 naira to help a girl in tech get her heels in the door. Visit www.africaagility.rallyup.com/PTAG to donate.
We move now to other parts of Africa. South Africa's electricity minister says the cabinet would choose between his proposal to end rolling power blackouts this month. However, he believes the government should not shy away from spending to address the crisis. Nocentio Romokokwa, who was appointed last month to try to end the worst power cuts on record, said focusing on improving the performance of the state utility Eskom sailing coal plants was the best opportunity to lower the intensity of the outages.
So the option of ramping up your open cycle gas turbine is an admission that your base load, if you like, units are unable to support the South African economy. So you need that emergency relief, which is your open cycle gas turbine. They come at great cost to the fiscus or the Eskom balance sheet. And we know that the Eskom's balance sheet really can't carry this. And one of the things we're proposing is that on all these big components, just go straight to the original equipment manufacturer. Don't have to go to my supply database. I go straight, I'm going to procure from there. On the issues of coal, especially on the coal plus mines, so essentially Eskom has got an obligation to invest in the mines so that we are mining good quality coal. We must invest in those mines.
30 years after the assassination of anti-apartheid leader Chris Hani, many South Africans are still grief-stricken. On Monday, the nation commemorated the activist. Speaking at the memorial ceremony, his widow, Limfo Hani, said she doesn't have closure. The South African Communist Party, SACP, a long-time ally of the ruling ANC in the fight against apartheid, called for a fresh inquest into the murder with a petition hoping to collect 30,000 signatures. Aged 50, Hani was shot dead in the driveway of his home in Johannesburg on April 10, 1993. The hugely popular figure and then SACP leader was gunned down in front of his daughter by Jonas Walus. The Ethiopian government says 2 employees of Catholic Relief Services, CRS, were shot dead over the weekend in the Amara region. Protests and road blockages in Amara have been reported since Thursday after the federal government began the process of disarming and reassigning members of the military units under regional authority to the federal army or the police. On Monday, restrictions including nighttime traffic and meetings were imposed on 3 of Amara's main towns, Gonda, Dessie, and Debre Biran. Greece and Egypt have reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen bilateral relations and cooperation. In a meeting in the capital, Athens, Greek Foreign Minister Nikos Dendias and his Egyptian counterpart, Sameh Sokri, held discussions in enhancing collaboration in areas including energy, economy, and climate change. A priority area is joint efforts on energy transmission from the Eastern Mediterranean to Europe. Dendias said at a news conference, in a reference to relations with Turkey, he said there have been positive developments after Greece extended support and solidarity following the devastating February 6 earthquakes. And outside Africa, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has trimmed its 2023 global growth outlook slightly as higher interest rates cool activity, but warned that a severe flare-up of financial system turmoil could slash output to near recessionary levels. The IMF, in its latest World Economic Outlook report, said banking system contagion risks were contained by strong policy actions after the failures of the 2 U.S. regional banks and the forced merger of Credit Suisse
Tightening of monetary policy by most central banks is starting to bring inflation back towards its targets. At the same time, serious financial stability-related downside risks have emerged. In our latest forecast, global growth will bottom out at 2.8% this year, before rising modestly to 3% next year, almost unchanged from our January projections. Global inflation will ease, although more slowly than initially anticipated, from 8.7% last year to 7% this year and 4.9% next year. Inflation is much stickier than anticipated, even a few months ago. While global inflation has declined, this reflects mostly the sharp reversal in energy and food prices. But core inflation, excluding energy and food prices, has still not peaked in many countries. It is expected to decline to 6.2% this year, still well above target.
President Vladimir Putin says Russia will see higher oil and gas revenues by the end of the second quarter, and that positive trends across the economy were gathering pace due to rising global oil prices. Oil futures LCOC1 have climbed more than 5% since the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies, including Russia, surprised the market last week with further cuts to production targets from May. Russia chalked up a $29 billion budget deficit in the first quarter of the year, largely due to failing revenues from its crucial energy export, which have been targeted by Western sanctions. Speaking at a televised government meeting, Putin lauded the resilience of Russia's economy in the face of Western sanctions. The Chinese Navy has continued with actual combat training around Taiwan, a day after Beijing announced the end of the drills, and as President Tsai Ing-wen criticized China for its irresponsible behavior. More in this report.
Chinese warplanes and Navy ships were still in the waters around Taiwan, the island's defense ministry said on Tuesday, after the end of 3 days of war games. It came as Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen criticized Beijing for its, quote, irresponsible behavior. A Chinese military ship was seen carrying out live fire exercises near the Taiwan Strait on Tuesday. China began its exercises on Saturday after Tsai returned to Taipei following a meeting in Los Angeles with U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy. China, which warned the U.S. not to allow Tsai to visit or meet McCarthy, has never renounced the use of force to bring the democratically governed island under Beijing's control. Taiwan's government strongly disputes China's claims. Although China said on Monday night the drills had ended, Taiwan's defense ministry said it had spotted 9 Chinese ships and 26 aircraft carrying out combat readiness patrols around the island late Tuesday morning. Taiwan's Air Force, Navy and shore-based missile crews are closely monitoring and responding, it added. Taiwan's government has repeatedly denounced the drills but said it will not escalate or provoke. In a video message released on Tuesday, Taiwan's president slammed China's military exercises as irresponsible for a major country and said they had caused instability in Taiwan and the region. China simulated precision attacks and blockades of Taiwan during the drills, sending up dozens of fighter jets and bombers. Taiwan's defense ministry said that on Monday, 91 Chinese military aircraft flew in missions around the island. Life in Taiwan has continued as normal despite the tensions, with no signs of panic or disruption, and civilian flights around the island, including over the Taiwan Strait, were also.
U.S. President Joe Biden has arrived in Belfast in a delicate political time in Northern Ireland as he helps mark the 25th anniversary of a peace deal that largely ended 30 years of bloodshed there. Details in this report.
U.S. President Joe Biden's visit to Northern Ireland coincides with a particularly delicate time in politics there. This footage underscores it. Dissidents in the city of Londonderry attacking police just a day before Biden's arrival during a rally opposing the 25th anniversary of the peace accord that capped the decades of sectarian violence known as the Troubles. So what's behind Biden's visit, and why does it matter? Biden, along with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, is marking the anniversary of that peace accord, the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, which was supported at the time by former President Bill Clinton, the fellow Democrat, who also played a hand in its negotiations. Biden has Irish ancestry, often quotes Irish poets, and is the first American president to visit Northern Ireland in 10 years. But the trip comes at a sensitive political time. For example, pro-British unionists loyal to London continue to boycott the power-sharing government that was a major part of the Good Friday Agreement. And because of Brexit, one of Belfast's political parties, the Democratic Unionist Party, or DUP, is also protesting trade rules that treat Northern Ireland different from the rest of the UK. Its leader, Jeffrey Donaldson, is seen here. On Biden's agenda are meetings with representatives of 5 political parties, and he's expected to float American investment opportunities to help break the impasse. But the White House said he's not planning to pressure them. The DUP has previously criticized Biden when he waded into that Brexit debate before. Violence also still crops up sporadically here. The British intelligence agency MI5 recently raised the threat level for domestic terrorism in Northern Ireland to severe, the highest since the rating system was introduced 13 years ago.
Up next, Nigeria's unemployment rate to hit 41% in 2023. That's in business news after this short break.
Welcome to Business News. The World Bank Group President David Malpass says global growth is expected to be weak in 2023, slowing to 2% from 3.1% in 2022. Malpass said this in his opening address at the ongoing Spring Meetings 2023 media call. He said several factors were weighing on the second half outlook. The concern is that slow growth will persist for years for many developing countries, increasing the fiscal stress and debt problems. Malpass said the second major problem is that the available global capital was being absorbed by a narrow group of advanced economies that have extremely high government debt levels. He said he had advocated a range of new policies that would spur production to combat inflation and currency weakness. KPMG has revealed that the Nigerian unemployment rate increased to 37.7% in 2022 and will further rise to 40.6% due to the continuing inflow of job seekers into the job market. The multinational consulting firm, in a newly released report tagged KPMG Global Economy Outlook Report 2023, says unemployment will continue to be a challenge due to the slower than required economic growth and the inability of the economy to absorb the 4 to 5 million new entrants into the Nigerian job market every year. KPMG also says growth was set to be driven by the continuous recovery in household consumption, sustained performance of the non-oil sector, and a recovery in oil production. Nigeria's box office rakes in 441 million naira from ticket sales across the country's cinemas in March. Okpeyemi Ajayi, chairman of the Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria, CIAN, just revealed this in Lagos. The CIAN boss was speaking about what he described as a rebound in the country's monthly box office revenue. In the lead up to the February 25th presidential and National Assembly polls, the central bank redesigned the naira. An initial phasing out of the old notes and a delay in the circulation of the new currency caused cash scarcity. Citizens face palpable hardship in withdrawing cash from banking halls and ATMs for their domestic needs. Ajayi said the total admission of viewers into cinemas across Nigeria for March of 2023 was 174,071. He said this amounted to 441 million naira, 752,914 in box office revenue. The CIAN boss said these figures are an improvement from the 278 million naira recorded in February of 2023. For March, they had total sales of 441 1,752,914 across all cinemas. For January, he informs it recorded ticket sales worth 819 million naira across cinemas in Nigeria. Increased 5G rollout and 4G expansion improves foreign investment into the telecommunications sector by 325.12% in 2022. The capital importation data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows telecoms attracted $456.82 million in 2022 compared to $107.46 million that was attracted in 2021. This is as the sector continued to retain its foreign investment appeal despite the country's challenging economic environment. Though telecoms records an increase in foreign investment in 2022, the total foreign investment into the country fell by 20.47%, or $1.37 billion from $6.7 billion in 2021 and $5.33 billion in 2022. Since the COVID-19 network further increased the reliance of almost every sector on the country's communication backbone, the telecom sector has recorded increased network rollout to expand coverage. Well, that's business news. Over now for the rest of the news bulletin. I am Maureen Meno Mwezigwe.
Next is entertainment.
Actress Biola Adebayo and her husband have welcomed their first child. In a post shared on her Instagram page, Biola disclosed they welcomed their bundle of joy through surrogacy after one failed IVF procedure and one cancelled surrogate circle. In the same post, she prayed God's blessings on the doctors who came through as well as the surrogate mom. Former Big Brother Titans finalist Yvonne has recounted how she was expelled from the university in her third year. She said after her rustication, she had to rewrite JAMB and apply for another university to start all over again. The TV reality star who featured in a recent interview where she discussed why she was kicked out of school. Yvonne added that she would have bought a certificate, but she wanted to experience school life. Music executive Don Jazzy has seen on Sunday been putting a smile on the faces of some of his followers on Twitter. A Twitter user asked the singer if he can gift someone anything he or she wanted, while the Maven head responded with "It depends." The user then mentioned that he or she needed 200,000 naira for a family member's school fees. Don Jazzy immediately sent the money. In the atmosphere of this, other Twitter users seized the opportunity to make demands, and the singer was kind enough to oblige to them. He even sent someone 1 million naira to pay for accommodation. American singer Mariah Carey has had a change of mind over the custody battle with Nick Cannon over their twin kids. According to reports, Carey has decided that she won't be fighting her ex-husband Nick Cannon in court over primary custody of their 11-year-old twins. Back in January, Mariah Carey overlooked the initial joint custody arrangement put in place when her union with the television personality Nick Cannon ended after realizing he has plans to have more kids, who is currently the father of 12 children with 6 different women. Carey is allegedly over Nick Cannon not having enough time for the children because of his other children.
And now is the best in sports.
The Super Falcons of Nigeria on Tuesday hammered 2023 World Cup co-host New Zealand by 3-0 in their second friendly game in Antalya in Turkey. It is the Falcons' second win in Turkey after edging World Cup debutant Haiti by 2-1 last Friday. Goals from captain Onome Ebi, Jennifer Echegini and Desire Okparanoze secured the comfortable victory for the 9th-time African champions. Meanwhile, in England, Chelsea defender Ben Chilwell has signed a 2-year contract extension which will keep him at Stamford Bridge until 2027. Chilwell has endured an injury-plagued spell over the last 2 seasons, but Chelsea were keen to extend his stay at Stamford Bridge. The 26-year-old left-back, signed from Leicester City in 2020, was part of the Chelsea squad that won the Champions League in 2021.
And the main news again. AGF Malami, Finance Minister, Accountant General have been summoned over alleged $2.4 billion oil fraud. Police have sealed off Plateau Assembly Complex until crisis resolved. Two aid workers have been killed in troubled Amara region of Ethiopia. And IMF has warned that deeper financial turmoil will slam global growth. That's the news now. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us from Limex on limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. Many thanks for watching.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.